to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. Welcome to the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company on this bank holiday Monday. It might be a bank holiday, but there's loads of news. Zach Polanski showing his true colours, getting absolutely hauled over the coals by Sky News yesterday. We see you, Zach Polanski. We know what you're about. We're totally up to date with how you feel about all the big issues of the day. And I, for one, am not impressed. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Maureen Lipman, depicted as a devil by pro-Palestinian activists, simply because she is Jewish. We'll also talk about Boy George, who was on a chat show in Ireland, and the terrible anti-Semitism that is in Ireland was, I think, on display there in many regards. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the fact that 2 people have been arrested over an arson attack at a Golders Green memorial. That's, of course, where those dreadful stabbings took place last week. Reform UK want to put migrant detention centres in green voting areas. Is that fair? Is that something we should be encouraging? Isn't it a bit vindictive? Surely they should govern for the whole country, or actually do Green voters have it coming? Tell me what you think about that. We're also talking about parking fines, which may double as Labour's war on the motorist continues. That's a big story. Maybe you've been fined. I'd love to hear from you and what you think about that story. We'll also talk about why 10-year-olds are more likely to own a phone than throw a ball properly, and ask whether fruit yogurts really are junk food. Yes, everything's junk food these days. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message as well to the main number, or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock, so get your voice on the air. Stay with us here in the Evening Exchange on Talk. Well, sometimes I'm critical of other broadcasters, sometimes I'm in praise of other broadcasters. One really good broadcaster is a guy called Trevor Phillips. Now, he is on Sky News at the weekend. Sometimes he does superb interviews. A lot of the time he does very good interviews, but he did an absolutely superb interview where I think he absolutely revealed who Zach Polanski was and is. Let's take a little bit of a look at what happened on Sky News yesterday.
There's also times where we hear marches, Palestinian marches, that I as a Jewish person walk on, where Jewish people say that makes them feel unsafe. Now, I don't think that actually makes them unsafe, clearly, because I'm a Jewish person who is on that march. So I think it's about having a conversation about how do we ensure that Jewish people are safe and Jewish people feel safe at times when they may perceive themselves to be unsafe.
Oh, that's interesting. So these marches where many Jewish people, frankly, most Jewish people that you or I would meet, say that they feel it makes them unsafe. Let me put a thought experiment to you. Imagine you are talking to Shlomi Rand or Norman Shine, the two men who were stabbed in Golders Green. How do you persuade them that what happened to them was somehow kind of in their imaginations? I mean, you've got to be clear about this. You can't have it both ways. Either there is something real here, or you're saying that some Jewish people are not making it up, but they're imagining something that is real that isn't real.
Trevor, that's an outrageous distortion of what I just said.
No, I'm kind of repeating what you've just said, what you said earlier in the week, and what you've just said to me, actually.
Yeah, I'm on Trevor Phillips' side of that argument, which will come as no surprise. I mean, what is it? Why is it that Zach Polanski goes on those hate marches? Why does he think that's all right? What is it about the people who are glorifying terror, who are supporting Hamas, who are supporting Hezbollah, for example, two terrorist organisations? Hamas, of course, took part on the 7th of October. This huge degree of anti-Semitism is out there. Also, Zach Polanski weirdly saying he didn't want to police what people said. I'm all for free speech as far as things go, but certainly there have to be some limits. If someone says globalise the Intifada, for example, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened last Wednesday when the Intifada was globalised, when a suspect who is accused of those crimes, he is charged with them, and I need to be really, really careful about that. But the fact is that there are two Jewish people who were stabbed simply because they were Jewish. But apparently phrases like globalise the Intifada are fine. The Prime Minister says people should be arrested for saying it. I agree with him. Zach Polanski, also on Laura Kuenssberg's programme on the BBC, this is their exchange.
Do you think that the Prime Minister is correct to say that saying or chanting globalise the Intifada is racist?
No, I don't think that's correct. I think it's important that we make sure that we have freedom of speech in this country and freedom of protest. We've seen a genocide that's been going on for years in Israel now, of which our government is not just complicit, but actively selling arms and intelligence. And I don't believe policing people's language is what's going to prevent, is going to make Jewish safety any better in this country.
Just to clarify, for a factual basis, it is factually not a genocide. The Hamas terrorists, the Israelis and the United Nations all agree that in the Gaza war, around 72,000 people were killed. About 20,000 of them were innocent civilians. I will shed absolutely no tears for Hamas terrorists who've been killed. The fact is that those Hamas terrorists and their families have been given pensions by the Gaza Health Ministry. And the fact is that the reason those pensions have been given is because they have died for the cause of Hamas. Now, those people have not died in a genocide. Those people have died in a war. 20,000 people dying is not civilians dying. I don't welcome any of those deaths. I don't want any innocent Palestinian to die at all. I want them to be free. I want them to be free from Hamas. I want them ideally to live in a democracy and a two-state solution. The point is that it's not a genocide when 20,000 people die. A genocide or a Holocaust or whatever name you put on it is many, many more people dying, and a systematic attempt to get rid of an ethnic group, which is exactly what the Nazis did. That's going on in Sudan as well, to a much lesser degree. It's going on in Nigeria too. When do we hear from Zach Polanski about that? We've covered it on this programme. I want to speak to Stephen Silverman. He's Investigations Director of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Stephen, you're very welcome to the programme. Can you tell me what you think of Zach Polanski's rhetoric over the weekend and the challenges to him as well?
Yeah, first, let me just thank you for your absolutely forthright commitment to the truth rather than propaganda.
Thank you.
If only some of our other broadcasters had the same level of integrity. It is utterly reprehensible and abhorrent that Zach Polanski uses his Jewish identity to damage the fight against anti-Semitism. I have absolutely no doubt that he is very welcome on the marches. Anyone who is happy to support the rhetoric that you hear on those marches would be welcome. The fact of the matter is it's a marginal view. It's a fringe view that a tiny number of the Jewish community for some reason are happy to go along with. And this is an attempt to represent it as typical of the wider Jewish community when it isn't. And, you know, I mean, Zach, this is the man whose first instinct was to show more sympathy for the murderous terrorists than he did for his victims.
And to go on about police brutality. I mean, if you don't want the police to kick you in the head, don't stab people. It's fairly straightforward, and the police weren't kicking that person in the head because it was a nice day out. They were kicking him in the head because they wanted to get a knife off the suspect in case something else happened.
And of course, they had no idea whether or not he had some sort of suicide device on him that could have gone off. And it was notable that the moment they did disarm him, they stopped kicking him.
Yes.
And you know, this is a party. Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised, because it seems that almost every day now, another Green Party candidate is shown to have made the most of
and there were 2 arrests recently. I want to talk more broadly as well, not just about Zach Polanski, Stephen, but actually about a very, very interesting clip, which I think spoke volumes, mainly through the silence of the audience, actually, when Boy George, who I've a number of issues with Boy George for a number of reasons, but one thing is that he has been incredibly supportive of his Jewish friends and neighbours over a very long period of time, and before the last few weeks, when there are some people who seem to be catching up with what people like Stephen and I have been saying for the last 2.5 years and beyond. This was on a programme called The Late Late Show in Ireland. It's a very popular chat show, and Patrick Keelty, who you may know, he's now estranged from Cat Deely, presenter of course on BBC and ITV at various points in the past too. He is this show in Ireland, The Late Late Show. This was the exchange that he had with Boy George.
For me personally, you know, growing up, I've had so many beautiful Jewish friends, and I still have. And being asked to kind of turn against the whole race of people is just not acceptable to me. And I'm getting a lot of abuse for it, but I don't really care.
And it's that idea, isn't it, that, you know, you've got attacks on the Jewish community, and the backdrop of that is obviously the horrors in Gaza, and this is a complex thing. But I know that, you know, you've always spoken out that violence is never the answer.
Well, I think you don't blame a whole nation for what's going on in America or in Russia or anywhere else, you know. I think it's really about your relationships with people. Do you know what I mean? I don't choose my friends based on their race or their sexuality or their age. I choose people because I like them and because they're good people. And I know lots of amazing Jewish people. If you don't know any Jewish people, maybe that's the problem. Do you know any Jewish people? Look at the choir, it's so weird. You know, as a country that's had a lot of pain, we should know what that feels like.
No, I know, and it's that idea that you must learn from the past and try to do different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the silence, that's surprising me a little bit.
Well, there are only about 2,500 people in Ireland who are Jewish, and so many of them have felt dreadfully discriminated against. And I mean, there is a huge level of anti-Semitism in Ireland, as there is here in the UK. Patrick Keelty under pressure because of that exchange there, and I think it spoke volumes, both the audience and what Patrick Keelty said. An RTE spokesman said on Friday's Late Late Show, Patrick Keelty addressed the Golders Green attack with his guest Boy George, who had witnessed the aftermath, as part of a wide-ranging interview. Patrick stated clearly, without qualification, that these attacks were horrific. He also said the attacks took place against the backdrop of the horrors of Gaza. At no point did he say, nor would anyone reasonably infer, that there was any justification for the attacks whatsoever. As someone who lost his father to a terrorist attack, Patrick has always been empathetic, measured and sensitive on such matters, which he was again on this particular show. RTE, the broadcaster, clearly on the back foot with that. I wonder what you make of that exchange, Stephen.
I think it's notable for 2 reasons. Firstly, I wonder if Boy George even realises the impact on the Jewish community of him sitting there and making a statement like that. Hearing that at a time when the community is under a threat like never before is just a reminder that there are still good, decent people out there who will have none of this. So, you know, all kudos to him. And it's typical, isn't it? Patrick Keelty did not say it is because of Gaza, but why raise it? It has nothing to do with Gaza. And anybody who brings Gaza into it is seeking to find a reason. And I'm not saying that this is what Patrick Keelty intentionally did, but it's this knee-jerk reaction which I think has led to this general feeling, and it's been engendered by the way that anti-Semites have manipulated identity politics and social media to make people think, oh, it's terrible, but, well, they kind of deserved it. The bottom line is anti-Semitism has almost become cool. Yeah. It's cool to hate Jews.
Well, look at what's happening to Maureen Lipman as well in Scotland. Yeah. She is merely performing in a play, and she's been depicted as a devil. Now, she has she is Jewish, and she's been attacked because she is Jewish. They want to cancel her and not have her in this play because she is Jewish. It's outrageous.
It's well, they've done very well there. They've managed to reach back 1,000 years and pull a trope right out of the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, Jews were believed to be literally demonic, so much so that they had horns and tails that they had to hide when they went out in public. And here we've got a horned Maureen Lipman, a more anti-Semitic trope you could not hope to see. It's like these people now, this is anti-Semitism is what people do to make them feel good about themselves, and so that they can go to bed at night believing that their moral credentials are intact and shiny. How this country has arrived at this position is just beyond belief.
Thank you, Stephen. Always good to talk to you. Stephen Silverman there, who's Investigations Director of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. What do you think of this? 0344 499 1000. Lots of people getting in touch as well about the reform migrant camps. They say they are going to build them in green areas when, if, and it's an if, they come to power. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Is this just tit for tat stuff? Surely this should show a bit of leadership here. Or actually, maybe that is leadership to say, well, fair enough, you say you want migrants, here are some migrants. Amanda's been in touch about that one and says, I'm afraid Reform UK's plans to put illegal immigrants in green voting areas would not have the same effect as in other areas, as they would be detained and not able to loiter in the streets as they do now. And Margaret's in praise of Trevor Phillips, as I am too, the Sky News interviewer. He never lets these people off the hook, says Margaret. His interviews are brilliant, and these MPs get a grilling too. Well done, Trevor. Totally agree with that, Margaret in Birmingham. And there are many things I would criticise about Sky News, their coverage of the Middle East, for example, but actually Trevor Phillips is one of those people who really does ask the right questions, and that's what I try to do on this programme too. We'll go to the debate desk. Joe Wheeler, the broadcaster and commentator, will be with us, as will Viggo Turling, who is Research Associate at the Adam Smith Institute. Loads to discuss with him, including the latest on all the anti-Semitism. We'll also talk about Reform pledging to open new migrant detention centres in green voting areas. Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader, says they could happen in Lewisham or Hackney. Very interesting about all of that. Also, welfare paying more than work for 600,000 households. Most people didn't go to work today. I'm in work, of course, but there are 600,000 households that get more in their pocket than if someone went out to work, and the average of that. We'll also talk about parking fines. Loads to discuss today, so please do give me a shout. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go to the debate desk now, and I'm delighted that Joe Wheeler is with me. Good evening, Joe, political commentator. Hello, lovely to see you. And Viggo Turling, who is Research Director at the Adam Smith Institute. Great to see you back on the debate desk. How are you doing?
Love to see you. May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. Do you know what? It's our producer,
Are you
James.
the first one to say that today?
Not the first one. It's our producer, James's birthday today, so very happy 32nd birthday to him. And what better way to spend it than producing this programme. I mean, that's the real gift we're giving him this evening. Let's face it.
I know. What more could he want?
What more could he want on his 32nd birthday? Right then, let's talk about Reform UK. They're pledging to open migrant detention centres in green voting areas. Viggo, just tell us a little bit about this story. What do you make of it?
Yeah, Peter, I'm slightly disappointed. I think this is the type of politicisation of the state that we're seeing across the pond. I think essentially what the Green Party is suggesting is that they're going to target green voting areas with unwelcome policies like building migrant detention centres in them. Now, I think if we're going to build migrant detention centres, we should build them in where they're best placed to be. And if I mean,
Reform's point essentially with this is they want to detain their plans, if they get into government after the next election, is to detain up to 24,000 people within 18 months. Those centres have got to go somewhere. And Zia Youssef, who's the Home Affairs spokesman, says the Green Party has support for open borders. And they say if this is the case, well, then these centres have to be in those areas.
Look, Personally, I don't think it's in line with our democratic values to target certain areas based on how they vote. Like I said, if we're going to build detention centres, I think they should be built where they're best placed to be. And if I were advising Reform UK, I'd advise them to focus on policies befitting of the serious party that they've become.
Joe, what do you make of this?
Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, but actually, no, I think this is the right thing to do. 100%. You know, we have a number of people who need to be housed. There have been objections to where they've been housed so far. I mean, really serious objections, and for good reason as well. And if there are a group of people who are very happy to have them detained near them, then let that happen.
There is this interesting point, I would say to both of you, that there are a lot of people, particularly on the left, who say, no, open borders, we must welcome migrants. But if you said to them, right, all the migrant kids who don't speak English are going to go to your kids' primary school, right? The migrant centre is going to be open in your area. We're going to have all those people using GP services you want, housing, and all the rest of it. There are so many hypocrites in this debate. Surely they should be given their just desserts, Viggo.
Look, I completely agree with both of you that we need to tackle the immigration issue, and migrant detention centres are potentially a way to do so. I just don't believe in the type of political rhetoric that targets people, areas, whatever, based on how they vote.
Is Viggo right? I mean, this is pretty divisive, Joe. But then maybe that's just where our politics is now.
It is divisive, but way back when we had a load of acronyms which were very useful. One of them was NIMBY, not in my backyard. Yeah, and the answer is yes, we should let people in. We should do this. We should house them. We should accommodate them. We should look after them. Agreed, but not in my backyard. And all Reform are trying to do here is put it in your backyard. If that's what you think, if that's what you believe in, then have them in your backyard. Don't put them in other people's where they don't want them. And there is a very simple way of working that out by saying, you know, what the political culture is within that area.
Zia Youssef says, given the Green Party advocate for open borders and for an infinite number of undocumented men to come here, we will prioritise Green constituencies and Green controlled councils to locate these detention centres. This is the fairest approach to ensuring democratic consent for all aspects of our mass deportation programme. The Green Party said it previously said it wants to see a world without borders. A spokesman today saying it was a disgusting idea, accusing Reform of making abhorrent announcements in an attempt to distract voters from its other policies. We want a fair and managed immigration system. Rupert Lowe as well, who's the leader of Restore Britain, has been tweeting about this. He says, where should illegal migrant detention centres be located? Reform, he says, want to vindictively target Brits and potential Green constituencies to make a point and house illegals next to them. That is their choice. But I don't believe that we have time for this petty nonsense. A Restore Britain government will not abandon residents of those constituencies who have a Green MP elected on 25% of the vote. That is not fair, and more importantly, it is not efficient. Restore Britain will focus on solving the problem in the most ruthlessly efficient manner possible. Objective number one is quite clear: remove the illegal migrant population. So they're being attacked from left and right here.
Yeah, I actually agree with Rupert on this. I do think this type of rhetoric is a distraction. Look, like Tice said, he accepted the challenge to build these centres in Lewisham and Hackney. If a report potentially by one of the think tanks can prove that Lewisham and Hackney is the best, most efficient place to build these centres, I will wholeheartedly support that policy. But until then, I think we should build these centres in the areas where they're best placed to be.
Joe?
Well, in part, yeah, I agree as well. I mean, it was a little bit naughty.
I mean, it's headline grabbing. Lots of people are getting in touch about it. We'll maybe take a call on this actually in a second, because it really has struck a chord with a lot of our viewers and listeners. And actually, the point stands that if you don't, if you really want to solve the problem, you've got to be part of solving the problem. And maybe if these people are in your backyard, you'll actually start thinking about it in a different way. Well,
Reform have actually said that the people placed in the centres would not be able to leave and would stay there for about 2 weeks before being deported, which, if they held true to that, is absolutely fine. If these people are confined, then processed and then sorted, and there's no word yet as to what happens when they are sorted, whether they're then free to go anywhere, which throws a bit of a different light on it. But, ultimately, yes, the policy is a little bit naughty. It's saying, OK, fair enough, this is what you want, have it. And take it away from those who don't want that issue, whilst equally saying, but it will be limited. So does it actually affect anybody at that point? If they're going to be that efficient, deal with these people within 2 weeks, sort them out, process them, and then make sure that those who can be here, and those that shouldn't, go away.
You've got an earpiece, Joe, haven't you?
I do.
Yes. Put it in there. We're going to take a call, so you're going to want to hear what Mark in Lincolnshire has said about this. He's given us a ring, 0344 499 1000. Mark, I'm going to suggest, before you even say anything, that you're going to support Rupert Lowe and perhaps not Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef on this. What do you make of this policy, this idea?
Yeah, well, hang on, just hold that.
Yeah, turn your telly off. Let me, while you do that, actually, let me just read. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, go on then. What were you about to say?
No, just tell us what you think.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't agree with what Nigel and Reform's position is on this. I think it was Zia Youssef that did these nice little video, wasn't it? Yeah, it's all very nice and lovely, and it gets them a bit of press coverage.
Do you think it's a fair policy?
No, I don't. I think it's actually quite vindictive. For example, obviously this is not touching even the local elections, but if you go back to the last by-election, Denton and Gorton, there was over 10,000 people, Reform voters, that voted for Reform, obviously. Under something like this, they'd be dumped with a load of migrants or extra migrants or a deportation centre or whatever.
But clearly what they want to do is just actually make sure that there are that those people are encouraged to vote Reform UK, because they're saying, well, if you don't want this migrant detention centre in your area, vote Reform UK. I mean, it's perhaps a cynical strategy, but it could be one that works for them electorally.
I don't think it would, to be honest with you. I think it's a nothing burger. I don't think there's anything. I'm not even sure you could really do this officially, even if you.
Well, I mean, if they're a majority government, maybe they can. Mark, thank you. What do you think of what Mark said there, Viggo?
I thought Mark just raised an excellent point, and that's the fact that in this new sort of multi-party electorate that we have, for every Green seat, there's in all likelihood going to be thousands upon thousands of Reform UK voters. So through this policy, Reform would not only be punishing Green party voters, but also their own.
What do you think of that, Joe?
Well, it's interesting that our caller today came from Lincolnshire, where, of course, RAF Scampton has been under scrutiny because it was put forward as a detention centre. I mean, it's a massive place. It's an ex-RAF barracks, and the people of Lincolnshire didn't want it there. And remember, way back in Brexit, you know, Lincolnshire voted out, basically. So they are not the most receptive county to either any part of the EU or having migrants in the county. And of course, you know, RAF Scampton is one very, I'm not going to say it's very small, but it's one RAF base. There are many, and they don't want those people there. So where those people are voting very strongly against it, why should they have anybody there, particularly when they're in great numbers in a confined space, and you just wonder what they're going to do next.
Yes. Lots of people getting in touch about this. Mark in Essex says an area could vote Green on 35% of the voters. What about the rest of the residents simply trying to frighten people to vote Reform? Well, that may well be right, but actually, if it's an effective issue, well, then maybe that works politically, and maybe that's the kind of down and dirty realpolitik, people call it, that Reform UK want to do. I mean, it's worked for them so far. Zarina's been in touch and says, your guest mentions his disappointment in Reform because they echo something like the US policies of Trump. Are we surprised? Nigel Farage does not have an original idea in his bones. He aligned himself with Trump and has gained favour by sprouting Trump-like traits. We need a credible plan. Our only hope is to bring the rest of Europe alongside. Dave in New Zealand says, wasn't it Tony Blair who started the everyone is going to get immigrants idea? Kerry says, definitely place them in the green areas is the best thing I've heard in ages. It has really put a smile on my face today. What do you think of all of that? 0344 499 1000. Just on the Green Party more generally, Alex in Wales says, living in Wales, I'm genuinely scared of the Green Party's leader, Zach Polansky. On Thursday, they could become a coalition government in Wales. It's genuinely terrifying. And anti-Semitic Jewish leader Zach Polansky in government in Wales, I hope this is not the outcome. Well, he's not standing in Wales. He'd also deny he's anti-Semitic. Of course, he is Jewish himself, and he would deny that he's anti-Semitic. It is possible, I would argue, to be Jewish and anti-Semitic, just as it's possible to, be, a gay person who hits gay people, for example, I would argue. Anyway, the point is, I suppose, he's not running in Wales, but yes, I think, given the opinion polls, there is going to be a seismic shift in what happens with the Welsh Assembly. Noel in Cork has been in touch. Hi, Noel. I could have viewers out. Well, we had one from New Zealand a minute ago. Great to have you there in Ireland. He says remarks in the Late Late Show were unacceptable, but such remarks are normalised throughout the media. Anti-Semitism comes from ignorance, but we're slowly beginning to call it out, says Noel. Noel, I'm delighted to hear that, and thank you for your message there. And, all the power to you and everybody else in Ireland who's calling out anti-Semitism. I actually wrote an article for the Jewish News about a year and a half ago, actually, about how Ireland was becoming incredibly anti-Semitic. It was poo-pooed by many people at the time, and they're not doing that quite at the moment. There are lots of people who have said to me, actually Irish friends of mine, who've said, well, you actually raised an issue that was very, very important. Suze has been in touch, says, Vigo, bless his naivety. There we are. Against our democratic values, do we have them anymore? Not under this egregious government. What is wrong with putting camps in areas where people welcome them? I think we should put all the camps in predominantly green areas. Brighton would be a good start. It will go so well. Vigo's missing the point. It's a strong message to make people think about all the reality of hordes in young, undocumented men from incompatible cultures. It's a wake-up call. Vigo is just obviously anti-reform. Do you want to respond to that, Vigo?
I don't think we... Look, I don't think we have to say goodbye to our democratic values yet. I think there's something worth preserving, and I do think we can solve the immigration crisis without targeting people based on how they vote.
Another one from Elaine, who says, are Reform punishing Green voters by putting migrant detention centres in the areas that may also have some Reform voters? In my opinion, the Reform voters won't really mind because they're getting what they want too. Illegals detained and deported. I wouldn't mind one in my area as long as they're not free to roam, which is what the policy is currently. Elaine, lots of interesting views coming in on that. I think we'll maybe take another call on this actually after the break. We'll take a break now. We'll come back to anti-Semitism. We'll talk about other major issues as well. Maureen Lipman depicted as a devil by pro-Palestinian activists, and also parking fines to double, to say nothing of whether fruit yogurts are junk food. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sure you do.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who has been in touch, including Brian in London, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Brian, you're on with me and also with Joe Wheeler and Viggo Turling. So tell us your thoughts on these reform proposals around migrant camps.
Oh, I've got such a big smile because it's one of the most grown-up, sensible immigration policies I've heard, and it's probably about 40 years too late. Because what it does, all the lefty bedwetters and the open borders, everyone should live here, folk, whether they be Lib Dems, Labour, or Greens, SNP, they get what they wanted. And I'm really, really surprised at the backlash, because all these weaselly words, the politicising, what are they saying? Are they saying they don't want it?
Is it grown up? Is it grown up, or is it just a bit sensible, maybe a bit petty?
Well, I don't think it's petty, mate, because it's not petty to protect this country and also to prove a point. Because if people vote for it and it turns up, and all of a sudden they're bashing them on, they're going around and beating them up on the streets and raping their kids and causing other problems because they're in a detention centre on their street. Maybe they won't be holding their hands up and holding placards saying everyone's welcome. Now, I drove through Oxford the other day. Oxford's a beautiful place, and I see Lib Dems signs in the window. They're big, multi-million-pound houses. And I thought, you know what they need? They need a little detention centre just round the corner from them, because then they might get their head out there behind and realise that the rest of us are suffering in this country. And these snobs and NIMBYs, they need to be taught a lesson. They price us, they price everyone out of their area, so they're all right. So they come down to Hayes, where I live, and then we have things like my sister getting hit on the head. We have other things happening around the place. We have someone killed by an Afghani refugee seeker in Hillingdon, just up the road from me. It don't happen in Oxford.
Brian, Brian, do you know what? Stay on the line just a second. I'll take your microphone. I'll take your line down just for a second, because I want to hear what Viggo and Joe think of what you said, and then I'll bring you back in. So just sit tight, Brian. Viggo.
I completely understand the sense of feeling that's provoking sort of this policy. What I'd say to Brian is the danger we face is if we create a precedent for this kind of thinking in politics, then God forbid if the Green Party get a majority at any election, they could start targeting reform voters with similar things. That's why we don't do these types of things, because we don't want to set dangerous precedents that might create issues for everyone in the future.
Joe?
I think Viggo's probably said something more mature than I was going to say. But ultimately, yes, there is a degree of vindictiveness in reform saying, OK, we'll put the detention centre in green voting areas. I've settled arguments like this with my children in the past, but there is a degree to which you go, yeah, absolutely, go try it. Yeah, because, we're not going to solve it any other way. I don't think Reform are wrong for saying this. I don't like the strong-arm politics to do with it. And yes, if this happens, that there are areas that have a Green majority and Reform then start building detention centres there, it's going to upset some people. Okay. But it's going to upset some people wherever they are.
Wherever they are.
Yeah.
So actually maybe the electoral advantage is fine. Brian, I wonder what you think about what Viggo was saying there. What if the Greens get into power in your area, for example, and say, right, we're gonna make Brian's life more difficult?
Well, I live in a Labour safe seat, and my MP's a confirmed Marxist, so you can imagine what it's like around my way. I don't get much say. It's a safe seat. Well, it does amaze me, people like Viggo. Do you know what? They give weasels a bad name. And the reason I say that...
It's not very nice, Brian.
Well, it's not very nice my sister getting hit on the head by an Eritrean. It's not very nice by Wayne Broadhurst getting killed by an Afghani just for walking his dog outside his house.
I don't know the details of that case, Brian, but certainly there are a lot of very good issues you raise, and I think you speak for a lot of people as well. I mean, would this make you vote Reform?
I'm already a member.
Okay.
And I can't believe that what's his name, the restore guy,
Rupert Lowe.
Yeah, what he's got on his pulpit and started having a little dig. I'm sure,
I think it seems to me, I don't know about you, Brian, but it seems to me that no matter what Reform UK say, they could say, right, everyone gets a massage and a puppy if you vote Reform UK. Rupert Lowe's not going to be too happy about that.
Well, it's a shame, really. It just shows that politicians the cream doesn't rise. I think it's more like turds float, mate.
No, there's a mental image. Brian, thank you. A lot in that, I think, is how I will respond to it. Lots of people getting in touch about all sorts of things. Clayton in Dartford says, plenty of room in Hackney Marshes or Victoria Park for a migrant camp. Build away, says Clayton, talking about various areas of London. Leslie says, where were the towns, especially in the north, asked if they wanted migrants? About time others took the share. And another Brian says, good evening, Peter. At the rate that Reform are going to deport illegal migrants to the detention centres will not be there for long. On benefits as well, Dawn's been in touch and says the massive unaffordable benefits bill will not be resolved by Labour. The financial markets will actually force a change or a general election. That's an interesting point because, and perhaps worthy of comment on the debate desk from Viggo and Joe actually, about benefits, because we have these really shocking statistics about 600,000 households are given more than the average wage. So the average wage is £32,200. and 625,618 households were given more than that in welfare payouts last year. I just want to be absolutely clear from the very start of this discussion, and I think I speak for Viggo and Joe as well, no demonisation, no criticism of people who are genuinely disabled. If you need these benefits, if you can't work, that's fine. I'm a taxpayer. I'm happy for my taxes in a compassionate society to go to people who need benefits. The real problem is there are so many people on benefits. There's so many people who work hard who would love to have £32,200 a year after tax in order to run their home, and they just don't. Viggo, what do you make of this story?
Yeah, I enjoyed this story, and I think it raises a really important point. It said, for example, that the 600,000 figure, that's doubled since 2019, and across the board, across working age benefits, we've seen pretty much that doubling since 2019 in terms of the amount that's spent on them. And the point I'd like to make here is that we're simply just not that much more sick, ill, mentally ill, etc. since before the pandemic, and we need to...
It is a factor though, the pandemic, especially when you look at the lockdowns and you look at the mental health aspect of that, is it not?
It is, absolutely. It was a sort of catalyst for many of the issues we have today, but throwing money into welfare programs isn't the solution. I think any doctor will tell you that any mental illness is better treated through social interaction, regular. Well,
I will tell you, as a patient, as a mental health patient, I've taken pills every single day for the last 15 years of my life. I have depression and anxiety as diagnosed clinically by a psychiatrist, one of the care of a psychiatrist and the psychiatry service, and a brilliant GP. Coming to work helps me. If I feel rubbish, if I'm having a tough day, coming to work helps me because I gain energy from people, I enjoy interaction with people, and that makes me feel better. Now, that's not going to be the case for everybody, but there is a dignity in work. Rishi Sunak used to talk about the dignity of work, and there is, getting up, doing something. I also remember from my history, I'm a bit of a history, I wouldn't say a buff, but certainly very interested in history, and FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, when it came to the Great Depression and getting everybody out of that. He paid people, one of his alphabet agencies paid people money to hold balloons in Times Square and scare away pigeons. Getting up, going to work is a more important thing and helps people rather than sitting at home. Joe?
Well, certainly people should be doing that rather than just sitting at home and receiving money. They should be doing something for it, which also helps them. But you're absolutely right. Going back to those bizarre and tragic years from 2020, I didn't realise at the time how much, first of all, the digital age would accelerate through that. We all suddenly found the wherewithal where we could work from home or work behind a screen, and that working behind a screen for young people was absolutely abysmal. It was cataclysmic. People who beforehand might find it a little bit difficult to call the hairdresser and make an appointment, suddenly found it almost impossible to interact. I did think a few years ago, actually, there must be a market here for people to help people with, face-to-face communication.
When I was doing my teaching of journalism students, one of the senior producers at Channel 4 News was in there as a guest speaker, and he said one of the hardest things when he's recruiting, he runs a whole team of people who book people for interviews on Channel 4 News and so on, and he said one of the most difficult things is to getting young people to pick up the phone and make a call. And I see it sometimes in my job as well. Viggo, you must see loads of people your age. Remind us how terrifyingly young you are. I've already got in trouble for mentioning that my producer's 32. Doesn't like people saying he's 32. Doesn't like James Liney. Does not like people knowing he's 32 years old today.
How old did you say?
32. That's right. Yeah, he's 32.
Just
yeah.
checking.
So let's just be careful not to mention that to not embarrass the 32-year-old James Liney. Viggo.
Unfortunately, I'm only 19.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You must know a lot of people who don't lift the phone. Do people ring you?
No.
Do you ring people?
I try to ring people. I say I probably ring people more on average than my peers, but I'm Generation Z is very much a texting generation, not a calling one.
And also, you text people before you call them.
Yeah, are you free for a call?
Yes, is
I
it
find
okay
that.
if
I find that. But people my age, I'm 41. People, unlike 32-year-old James Liney, I don't mind people knowing that I'm 41.
Did you say it was 32?
32, yeah, that's
today.
right. Yeah. It is today. May the 4th be with you, James. But listen, lots more to discuss in a few minutes' time. We will talk about anti-Semitism. We'll talk as well about parking fines. And just before we actually go to a break, let's hear a voice note from Dave on those detention centres.
Hi, Peter. Regarding reform putting detention camps in green areas, personally, as a reform voter, I would want them in reform areas. If we're putting them in green areas, there is a likelihood that these detention centres could be infiltrated by sympathisers, and we don't want that. We want to maintain control. If we're keeping them in reform areas, we want to maintain a higher degree of control and a higher degree of the correct workforce going in and processing these detention centres, plus the employment opportunities that it would provide as well. Anyone in the green areas, they're not going to be applying for these jobs because they're too busy out with the placards.
Very interesting thought there. Let me just read out one more message here, actually two. One from Mary in Devon says, I was born and brought up in northwest London by my Catholic Irish parents. Two of my best friends were Jewish. Never ever were our religions or beliefs ever an issue. Sadly, one of them's now passed away. I no longer live in London, but I go back every year to visit my family's graves and always visit my friend's grave in the Jewish cemetery as well, and no one will stop me. Mary, that is lovely and good for you for doing that and keeping that light alive for those people. Sean in Edinburgh says, I watched the Late Late Show. This is the Irish chat show with Boy George and Patrick Keelty on YouTube with a friend who's originally from Donegal and was disgusted with the pair's anti-Semitic content. Keelty asking the audience if they know anyone is Jewish. Well, it was actually Boy George who did that. Not one member said a thing, and Keelty thought it was funny and brilliant. The same friend from Donegal, totally embarrassed to be Irish due to his community supporting Gaza and Israel committing a genocide. He doesn't believe that is in fact the case. Lots to discuss in all of this. We'll go back to the anti-Semitic issue both in Ireland and in the UK on the debate desk with Viggo and indeed with Joe. Stay with us here on Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P, hi Joanna. I don't see it as vindictive to put migrants in green areas. It will make people think, what are they voting for? Green voters insist they want open borders and migrants. Let them prove it instead of objecting and not on my doorstep. We will continue to discuss all of this as time goes on. I just want to bring us back to the anti-Semitism issue that we're talking about. Zach Polanski, the Green Party. Let's just run this clip one more time of Sky News. This was Trevor Phillips, a very good interviewer. He's on Times Radio as well, talking to Zach Polanski, holding his feet to the fire on these marches as well. There is speculation the marches could be banned. I think that's a good idea. I think they've had their time. I'm not against freedom of assembly or freedom of speech, but I am against people supporting terrorism and supporting hate. Zach Polanski says he's been on those marches. He was taken to task by Trevor Phillips on Sky News yesterday.
There's also times where we hear marches, Palestinian marches, that I as a Jewish person walk on, where Jewish people say that makes them feel unsafe. Now, I don't think that actually makes them unsafe, clearly, because I'm a Jewish person who is on that march. So I think it's about having a conversation about how do we ensure that Jewish people are safe and Jewish people feel safe at times when they may perceive themselves to be unsafe.
Oh, that's interesting. So these marches where many Jewish people, frankly, most Jewish people that you or I would meet, say that they feel it makes them unsafe. Let me put a, if like, thought experiment here. Imagine you are talking to Shlomi Rand or Norman Shine, the two men who were stabbed in Golders Green. How do you persuade them that what happened to them was somehow kind of in their imaginations? I mean, you've got to be clear about this. You can't have it both ways. Either there is something real here, or you're saying that some Jewish people are not making it up, but they're imagining something that is real that isn't real.
Trevor, that's an outrageous distortion of what I just said.
No, I'm kind of repeating what you've just said, what you said earlier in the week, and what you've just said to me, actually.
We also looked a little bit earlier about the clip from the Late Late Show in Ireland of Patrick Keelty, the presenter, talking about Gaza when I don't think he needed to talk about Gaza. Elisa in Chelmsford has been in touch about that specifically and has this voice note.
Peter, I've been waiting for people in the arts to speak out, and I'm so pleased that Boy George said what he said. Like you, there's a lot of things I don't agree with him about, but he spoke out, and I want to see more celebrities, more people in the arts, in the sports world, come out and tell it like it is. Speak up for us Jews, because we've been getting such a bashing. I mean, look at the Eurovision Song Contest. Look at the hell that they've had to go through with that year after year, and again this year. I stand with Maureen Lipman, and I'd like to give you and Stephen Silverman a great big hug. You're both bang on the money about everything you said about Zach Polanski and the brilliant interview with Trevor Phillips. So thank you, as always.
Lovely message. Thank you, Elisa. I agree with every word of that. Joe and Vigo still with me on the debate desk. Joe, what do you make of what Elisa said there, and indeed that interview with Zach Polanski?
I'm shocked. I'm shocked to my boots. Maureen Lipman, for a start, she's 79 years old. She is, you know, known as a national treasure.
Total national treasure.
I've got friends who are Jewish, who are, you know, part of Islam, I don't know how many faiths, and I've never really thought about it. Why do we have such division now? And why is Maureen Lipman being held to account for this? You know, apparently for views she's held in the past. But, you know, if you simply say, I believe in Judaism, I believe in Islam, I believe in Christianity, you know, you're being judged simply because you do. And here she's being portrayed with devil's horns. This isn't right.
It's absolutely horrendous.
This is wrong. You know, and everything that happened in Golders Green, you know, equally wrong. And the police, they can't do right for doing wrong. You know, nothing they
and
do.
Zach Polanski criticising the police and getting slapped down, I think, quite rightly, by Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner. What do you make of this, Vigo?
Look, if anything, I'd support building these detention centres in Zach Polanski's neighbourhood. He's absolutely disgraced himself with this recent comment or retweet that he made. Polanski defended, or not necessarily defended, but he attacked police officers for handling a situation involving a man who, yes, stabbed two Jewish men.
Allegedly, I should say, because he's been charged. We'll just be careful about that.
A suspect
who
allegedly stabbed 2 men in Golders Green, but also was convicted of stabbing a police constable in 2000.
We'll just be very careful about that because there are active charges at the moment, so we'll just be careful. Let's just move on and talk a little bit about parking fines, which may double. Joe, you're a driver. What do you make of this?
Oh, just how many 4-letter words? I mean,
keep it clean.
I tell you something, I don't often drive in London if I can possibly help it. I did fairly recently, following my sat-nav, drove down a road that I don't know what the issue was, but the fine was 180 quid.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I haven't upset anybody here. Yeah, and I park correctly. I never park in London without taking a photograph of the sign that says what you can do, whether I've paid the, you know, it is just insane.
We got a call a few weeks ago from someone who is a plumber. And he said that when he parks, he tries to find a traffic warden to fine him because the fine is less than the expense of parking. It's £20 an hour or something where he needs to park in places like Islington. I mean, the motorist just being hammered again, and so many local councils as well, Viggo, seeing them as an easy target.
Absolutely. And while I don't necessarily support antisocial behaviour, and I think parking illegally falls into that category, I agree. I don't think this is necessarily the time to be placing this additional fine on motorists, especially with the rising fuel prices, etc. So, yeah, I agree with you, Peter.
And there are people who are trying to be responsible who often aren't. There people who find it difficult to download all the different apps you need and so on. There isn't even a single app for all of this. Lots to think about on that. Give me your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Just a couple of minutes left. Are fruit yoghurts really junk food? Joe?
No, of course they're not. I mean, given all the other rubbish that's on sale these days, and you know, I'm afraid it doesn't take much education to work out what is highly processed food and what isn't. If you are eating yoghurt of any description, okay, add a bit of fruit to it. I mean, ultimately, if you go to the next aisle and buy a couple of packets of biscuits, you've done away with whatever good you were going to do with the yoghurt in the first place.
Well, it's interesting. I remember seeing someone saying, oh, this particular brand of smoothie had as much sugar in it as a donut. But the fact is that the donut probably has zero nutritional value, yet the smoothie has some nutritional value. Yes, it has perhaps a lot of sugar in it, but it's got lots of good stuff in there as well, Viggo. I mean, what do you think about this issue?
Yeah, so I won't claim to be a nutritionist and an expert on what's in yogurt and what's not, but what I would say is the industry leaders around this are coming out saying this is a bad idea, this is unnecessary red tape, this will cost them, and I think whenever that happens, we should listen to them, and I'm always sceptical of unnecessary red tape.
I'm a mother, right, and I will tell you that none of that useless substitute sugar, yes? Walking through the cordial aisles of any supermarket and it's no added sugar, I don't want it. It's got sweetener in it. I'd rather have the full-fat sugar stuff, and that goes for the yoghurt and anything else you're going to look at. If it's got a sweetener in it, I don't want to eat it.
Where do you stand on semi-skim milk?
I have kind of got used to that over the years, but no, we should be eating full fat milk.
Because some people say it's full cream milk as well. It's a bit, it's an issue. Listen, thank you both very, very much indeed. That's Joe Wheeler, the broadcaster and commentator, and Viggo Turling, who's a research associate at the Adam Smith Institute, on the debate desk today. They're off for a fruit corner. Mike in Milton Keynes has been in touch and says, I think the new Chinese embassy should have a change of use and become a detention centre when Reform are in government. Great show, keep it up. Thank you for that. Marky Mark, I'm not sure this is the actual Marky Mark, says Brexit would have never happened if we would have had a handle on immigration. Brexit did happen, and we don't have a handle on immigration. This nonsense will stop when or if they get into power. It's just cheap shots. And another person says, I live in Hertfordshire, a farming area which happens to be green, conservative for years, but like most areas was fed up with the lack of leadership, so turned to green. I'm not privileged, and there are many where I live struggling to make ends meet. We need grown-ups to tackle this terrible problem, mass uncontrolled immigration. Well, lots to discuss in a few minutes' time. We'll talk about welfare, paying more than work for 600,000 households. Are Brits being caught in a benefit trap? Darwin Friend from the Taxpayers Alliance and Matthew Hulbert, the Liberal Democrat activist, will be on with us. I want your views too. 0344 499 1000.
Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon, welcome to the programme, welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I hope you've been with us for the last hour, but if you haven't, well, there's plenty more to come in the next couple of hours because a lot of debate on what Reform UK are proposing. They say that they want to build migrant detention centres before migrants get deported back to their home countries. They want to put them in areas that vote green. What do you think about that? 0344 499 1000. We're also talking about welfare because there's a study that shows that more than 600,000 households are getting more than what the average worker earns in benefits. How is that fair? Of course, we don't want to demonise anybody who is genuinely disabled, but there are a lot of people who could work who don't. Lots in this. We'll have a debate in a couple of minutes with Matthew Hulbert and Darwin Friend. Darwin's from the Taxpayers Alliance. We'll talk about anti-Semitism too. Major developments over the weekend, especially with Zach Polanski's feet being held to the fire and a chat show in Ireland under fire because of what the host reaction was to Boy George. We'll talk about food prices soaring 50% in 5 years and things could get worse. We're all feeling that at the moment, but what about the nighttime industries, not just in our groceries, but also if you're going out. I went out, I had lunch. Now, fair enough, this was a London pub the other day, 2 people, and it was £66. We didn't have that much food. It just seemed a huge amount of money. I think I'll think twice about doing that in the future. A lot of money for a lunch. We're talking as well about a volunteer grave cleaner. We'll speak to him a little bit later on. He is a really good guy, 25 years old, lost a friend to suicide, and he wants to give back to his community by cleaning up graves that need a bit of a brush and a bit of a clean. His name is Ben McGregor, and the local council says that he can't do it because they're unauthorised, apparently. So what on earth is going on there? We'll talk about that, as well as parking fine doubling. Loads to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message to the main number 0344 499 1000. That's the number for phone calls as well, and we'll take plenty of those in between now and 10 o'clock. Loads to discuss here in the Evening Exchange. Stay with us here on Talk. Right then, let's get straight into this debate about welfare paying more than work for 600,000 households. This is Conservative analysis provoking calls for an overhaul of the £155 billion benefits budget. That is 5 times the amount we spend on defence, we spend on benefits. And there are more than 600,000 households receiving more in benefits than the average worker's salary. That is £32,200. So 625,000 households given more than that figure of £32,200 in welfare payouts last year. That's the average annual salary of a British worker after tax, despite the introduction of the benefits cap. 16,000 of those households received more than £60,000 in welfare payments. That's almost twice the average annual take-home pay. Keir Starmer under pressure to cut welfare spending, and Labour says it's going to unveil a defence investment plan within weeks. Neil O'Brien, who is a Conservative Shadow Minister for Policy Development, says the real terms growth and scale of really large benefit claims from working age households makes the case for a return to welfare reform stronger. We need reforms across all types of benefit, and particularly the household benefit cap, which is no longer really constraining the growth of really large claims. This is a big live issue, of course, at the moment. A government spokesman says the 2% of households receiving this level of support have the highest needs and require extra support. The benefit cap exempts households where one or more residents have a severe disability requiring extra support and are among the most vulnerable in our society, and it is right that they receive this. To debate this issue, Matthew Hulbert's with us, Liberal Democrat activist, and Darwin Friend is Research Director at the Taxpayers Alliance. Darwin, are people getting value for money?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show, Peter, and good evening. And I don't think they are. I mean, I think there are many people who are receiving these benefit payments who rightly deserve them. And I think all of us would agree that there are people out there who do need these funds to help them actually get by, because they literally cannot go out there and get a job. But I think the scale of the increase that we've seen in these benefit payments is simply making the case that there are people out there who could actually be going to work instead. You've mentioned the figures, 625,000 households getting more than the average annual salary post-tax of a British worker. Now, that's almost double the amount that we saw before the coronavirus pandemic took place. And I think this speaks to the wider problem we have with our benefit system post-pandemic, which is that we haven't actually decided to go back to how things were before coronavirus took hold, such as having in-person assessments for personal independence payments, which has meant that there are more and more households who are then able to avoid the benefits cap, which I'm sure we'll discuss as part of this debate. And what that's doing is driving up that benefits bill, which is driving up taxes for everyone across the country.
Matthew, there are clearly a small number of people. As the government points out, this is only 2% of people, of welfare claimants, but £60,000 a year in welfare payouts. I mean, you'd have to earn a heck of a lot of money to get that after tax. Is it fair?
Well, good evening, Peter, and to Darwin as well, and of course for your viewers and listeners. Well, I mean, I think my first point is, having read up on this a bit, is that this is Conservative analysis. And, strange that Conservative analysis agrees with their particular political.
There's no suggestion from the government. There's no suggestion from the government that figures are wrong necessarily. They may be coming from a particular standpoint, but there's no suggestion from the Department of Work and Pensions that these figures aren't accurate.
Fair enough. And what I'd say to that is that, the government statement, in a sense, says what the situation is, that there are a small percentage of people who, because of their acute difficulties, do need extra support. And I'd like to think that none of the three of us in this debate here this evening, and hopefully none of your viewers and listeners either, would say that people with acute needs shouldn't receive that support. At least I hope they won't say that.
There's certainly, there are people who are disabled, for example, who take longer to wash, for example. They need more hot water. Their hot water bill is going to be larger, for example. Surely Matthew's right, Darwin, that we should support those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those people that, as I said at the start, who do really need the support, I think absolutely should get it. But I think the wider problem we're having with the benefits bill at the minute is the fact that so much of disability benefits is being spent on people who you could argue shouldn't be getting that in the first place. And to be frank, weren't getting it 10 years ago or even 5 or 6 years ago before the pandemic. I mean, when we look at personal independence payments, once again, the number of people who are now receive that benefit compared to before the pandemic, there are 3.5 million people now who get it. There was 2 million before the pandemic started. And so I think we do need to actually have a look at going back to in-person assessments, because what so many people fail to recognise is that these assessments are now taking place quite often just over the phone.
Yeah.
And whilst I'm sure a lot of the people who are claiming those benefits do rightly deserve them, there are also those who, if there was an in-person assessment, I'm sure wouldn't be actually being approved for these benefits.
I think that's a very fair point, actually. There are not, in the last 5-6 years, another 1.5 million people who deserve personal independence payments, who you know, if it was done in person, this would be a much more rigorous process. The problem, to me, Matthew, seems to be a system-wide problem, that it is just not working.
Well, people who can work should be encouraged and helped to work for their own dignity and for their own mental health. I think both, having spoken to you before, Peter, I think both of us have been made redundant at 1 or 2 points in our lives, and perhaps had to rely on the welfare state. And I personally found that pretty intolerable and wanted to get a job to be out of that situation as soon as possible. So, I mean, I just don't quite, maybe I'm naive, and if I am, okay, but I just don't quite believe that there are lots of people who I constantly want to be in a situation where they're quite rightly being badgered by the state on quite a regular basis, and just think, yeah, this is the life that I want. I just don't quite believe
is, Matthew, I don't actually disagree with what you're saying at all there. The point I would give the example of a young woman I know who has, let's talk about, you know, mental health issues, which I've suffered from, and you know, I've been out of work, not necessarily as a result of, but certainly that's something that I've experienced. There's a young woman I know, I think she's 22 years old now, and she has worked previously. She wants to work, but she's had to jump through an awful lot of hoops to get benefits, and she's worried, this is someone in my life who I know, and she is worried that if she goes into work and then has a mental health episode again, she's not going to get benefits to come back to. So in some ways, where, you know, it should be tougher, in other ways it should be more flexible. The other big issue that I bang on about all the time is the fact that work has changed dramatically in the last 5 or 6 years. And I agree with you, Matthew, that if people can work, they should. There are a lot of people, including some disabled people actually, who could do some work. Sitting on a laptop even 2 or 3 hours a day, or days where you can actually do it, is preferable to doing nothing, Matthew.
Indeed it is. And again, for that person's own dignity and sense of well-being and sense of purpose in life. But it sounds from that example that you've just given there, Peter, that it is the system that is trapping the person.
Is that the problem, Darwin? Yeah. Is the system trapping people in benefits? Because, well, I mean, you could argue, actually, if you are going to get £32,200 for, frankly, doing nothing, whether you deserve it or whether you don't, why would you go into a job that will pay you less than that? And the whole point of universal credit was to make work pay. But it goes back to my central thesis, which is that universal credit was screwed up by George Osborne, and he should have let Ian Duncan Smith 12, 13 years ago do what was right within that system. What do you think, Darwin?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. And it makes financial sense for a lot of people. If you are going to earn more on benefits than you are going to necessarily get from working a full-time job, then for a lot of people, they're going to make the sensible decision and potentially go on benefits as a result. Because if they've got families to look after, then that's their first priority. It's not this grand scheme that we might be talking about of the public finances, for example. And that is why I think we actually need to reform this system to actually help people get back into work. I mean, there, in the article I saw today, which was based on this story, there was talk about benefits cap reform, which I think would actually be welcome, because at the minute those disability benefits are meaning that an entire working age household is able to avoid the benefits cap because one person is on some form of disability benefits.
Although it will affect everybody in that household, won't it, Matthew? If you've got one person who's severely disabled, it'll affect everybody. So actually, is the benefits cap, or reimposing a benefits cap, or not having exemptions for a benefits cap, is that in itself unfair, Matthew?
It may well be. I mean, I'd like to make one other point, and I hope that I do get to make this, because I was sat there thinking earlier today, I'd have much more sympathy with this kind of thing if, as I always put it, the big end of town was also focused on by this government. So please let me just give this quick figure. According to figures from Tax Watch, tax avoidance and non-compliance among the UK's richest people results in an estimated £1.9 billion not going into the exchequer each year. How about we get on to the big end of town? How about that?
We should, and people should absolutely pay all their taxes, although tax avoidance is not illegal, and a lot of people are paid a lot of money to do tax avoidance accountants as well. Matthew, I let you uninterrupted. Can't believe you would have suggested that I would have interrupted you in some way, Matthew. That never happens. Matthew's had his little rant against rich people, so thank you to him, and thank you also to Darwin Friend. Matthew is a Liberal Democrat activist, and Darwin is a research director at the Taxpayers Alliance. What do you think about what they said? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll take a load of calls after the break. Stay with us.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Just had a look at my Twitter there over the break. You can, of course, tweet me at Peter Cardwell. Bob says, what's the problem? The Green Party wants to welcome all refugees. Why is there an issue to put the refugees in Green constituencies? Scottish Restore member says, not a threat. Farage is basically giving exactly what you vote for in your area. It's wonderful. Ray Mitchell says, Peter, from what Vigo says, who was on the debate desk a little bit earlier this evening, Vigo was there. If Greens get into power, the country will be finished in any event. Another person says, I'm not Jewish, but I'm a year younger than Maureen Lipman, and I've fancied her since I was about 20. Anyone who says anything nasty about her, I would like to meet in a dark alley, says Ray from Taunton. Well, Ray, we obviously can't advocate violence in any way, but a valiant defence of Maureen Lipman there, and she is a national treasure and someone who says all the right things. Also a brilliant actress. I don't know if you've seen Cold Enough for Snow. It's an old BBC drama. It's absolutely brilliant. There's another follow-up to something called Eskimo Day, and it was just it was just sort of Jack Rosenthal writing and Maureen Lipman at her absolute best. It was just a brilliant and very important drama, actually, I think, as well. I really enjoyed that. Right then, let's speak to John in East London about Zach Polanski. John, thanks for giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. I just wanted to say Zach Polanski is a self-hating Jew. He doesn't realise that there's no Jews in Gaza. There haven't been any Jews in Gaza for 21 years. There's Arabs in Israel, 2 million Arabs in Israel. And
Is it fair to call him a self-hating Jew when he simply isn't a Zionist?
Well, even his family has disowned his views over
There
Israel.
have been some interviews with extended members of his family, certainly. It's interesting with him as well, because he's been through, I think we can charitably call it, a political journey. And when he was standing for the Lib Dems previously, he said a vote for me is a vote for Israel.
Well, I don't think it is. He's clouding all the issues completely. Jews have pulled out of Gaza 21 years ago. He doesn't seem to realise that.
Well, he's certainly someone. I mean, I would love to ask him, and I've invited him on my show many times. I would love to ask him, why on earth do you go on those marches? I spoke to someone this morning, actually, who has been on the marches on a number of occasions. And, I mean, the first time, maybe. The second, third and fourth time, when you know that there are people glorifying Hamas, glorifying Hezbollah, terrorists both, of course, and you're calling for death to Jews and being absolutely horrible to people. Why on earth would you go on those marches, John? I'm sure you, coming from East London, wouldn't dream of it.
The marches have dragged the war on for another 2.5 years.
I don't think the marches are to blame for that, though, John, are they?
Sorry?
I'm not sure the marches are to blame for that.
I think they are, because Hamas has praised the marches, has praised their support. If any people would have marched against Hamas, it would have been over a lot sooner.
And that's a very good point in itself, John. Where are these marches against racism? Where are these marches against anti-Semitism? There's some really, really good protests that have happened. I was actually invited to speak at one last week. I couldn't do it because I was presenting this programme. But there are some really, really, really good activists, people like Stephen Silverman and the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism that do them. But there's so many people who are on those marches who say they care about human rights, they care about human dignity. Well, actually, what about the human rights and human dignity of Jewish people in this country and around the world as well? Lots of people have been in touch about benefits as well. Chris says, I asked for a face-to-face assessment. I was told by Pip that they only do telephone assessments, says Chris. Another person says, the biggest problem with the universal credit is fraud. Most claimants do not tell the truth. I'm not quite sure how you know that. Carers allowance is a massive area that could be clamped down on, very difficult to prove. One of my claimants gets over £200,000 a year. Wow. Zarina says, I'm like you, Peter. Severe depression has been a major issue for me. Zarina, I'm very sorry to hear that. That cannot be easy. I have to work, and any time off I can easily spiral downwards. I do not claim benefits, and I struggle on £18,000 gross pay per year. I'm completely broke, but my mental health has to come first, and work is the best medicine. Serena, you've got the right attitude there, definitely. Keep going to work. I know what you mean. I used to find this, especially when I was at university, I would have these really, really intense kind of terms and then come home to Northern Ireland when it would kind of stop, and then I would spiral and feel dreadful. But listen, I wish you well, Serena, and I'm sorry to hear that you have such a difficult situation. I hope you're getting the right care and the right NHS care as well, and are on the right pills. I was on pills originally that did absolutely nothing for me. My psychiatrist changed them, and now I can live the life I live, and it is a good life, and I'm very, very fortunate. Let's speak to Louise in Kent. You're very welcome to the programme, Louise. Thanks for the call. What would you like to say?
Hi, we've spoken a number of times.
Good to talk to you again.
A couple of things. My first thought is about this Zach Polanski and putting migrants in green areas.
Yes.
Right. Somebody came on earlier and said, well, if Greens get in and they start doing nasty things to others, then what? Well, can I just remind people, Zach's already done that, because he was commenting about, wasn't it, about people on the right, that you can't do anything with them, you can't change them, and so the best thing is to do is shut them out of society. Well, frankly, I think Reform are doing, they're behaving in the same way, and the thing I'm struggling with more than anything is what has happened to our society now that people have to be so horrible to other people.
I think that's you've hit the nail on the head, Louise. And I just, sorry to interrupt you, Louise, but I just want to ask you a question before you develop your point, which is a very, very good one. Why are we so divided? And surely in an election week we should be talking about uniting people, should we not?
Yes, but I was trying to listen to a podcast on Spectator where they had Matt Goodwin and somebody else on, and two Tories, and Matt Goodwin, he just was so horrible about the Tories, and actually I switched off because I just thought, I don't want to. If you can't say about the good policies and things you're going to do, rather than just trashing everybody else.
But our politics is adversarial, Louise. Our politics is adversarial. You've got to say why you're better than the other guys.
I agree, but it's gone the other way, Peter. It's gone so far the other way that all they do now is trash everybody else. We see it in this government now. You know, the government can't take responsibility for their own mistakes. It's the Tories. They were out a year ago. All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is about the benefits, because there is a huge difference between the cost you get from out-of-work benefits and sickness-related benefits. A vast difference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I would be interested to wonder how many people lose jobs or can't get jobs and then would look to another means of getting money in.
Yeah.
All the way through. I think that needs to be unpicked a bit more. Mm-hmm. And again, I've always said now with benefits for certain mental health, things like PIP, they have to go back to face-to-face.
Yeah.
And I would question, if you don't want to do a face-to-face and you can't do it, then what are you doing? You're sitting at home, you're not going out to a pub, you're not going out shopping.
Yes. And the irony was, Louise, I don't know if you heard the message that I just read out a minute ago from Chris, who was saying he wanted a face-to-face assessment for PIP. He wanted to talk to them in person, was told, oh, they don't do them anymore. I mean, I just think that's ludicrous.
I obviously went to a tribunal before the pandemic, and I fought really hard. I had to have a diagnosis, the lot, and sat before the judge with the social worker and DWP there, and made my case, and I wanted to work. That's why I went for it, because PIP is not an out-of-work benefit.
Yeah.
It's there to help you live your best life possible.
Yes.
And if you want to work, it's there to do that. And I honestly feel that if you've got mental health issues, then, certainly for PIP, you shouldn't get it unless you're in secondary care. You shouldn't get it because that shows that you're really unwell.
Louise,
and you've got issues.
Louise, a lot to think about in what you've said. There are a lot of really meaty points. Whatever you think about Louise said, and some really, really good points, and points that we haven't actually debated so far already on this programme. 0344 499 1000. We're about halfway through the show. There's loads more time to get your voice on the air like Louise. The next caller is Melanie in Staffordshire. Melanie, I think benefits are on your mind this evening. You're very welcome to the programme.
Very much for letting me come on, Peter. I would make it as quickly as possible.
Take your time, Melanie. We're in no rush. We're in no rush. Go for it.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say, no disrespect to you guys, I find it very offensive when I hear people who are like one of your celebrities, like a weather broadcaster who was a freelance worker, making comments about benefit when they were not going to know about redundancies, having come from an area like Wilmslow, where they're less likely to have come across those sorts of situations. I find that offensive, first of all. Secondly, by insulting people on benefits, people are forgetting that they're also including people on state pension, because that's now classed as a benefit, who are in their 60s, 70s and 80s. So I don't think they're going to be very happy about that. Comments about sitting down at home and doing nothing. I'm sorry, but I think you'll find the job centre will be sending people to work clubs, how to write a CV, how to dress for an interview techniques and so on, and there is no consistency between these places. It depends on the space they've got and the rooms they've got, but there are some excellent workers out there who are trying their best to put on training for people on benefits. Also, you've also got the added barrier that jobs now have to be applied for online. Even charity shops now, which used to attract older people, now they are insisting on online applications, which makes it very difficult for people perhaps who are on PIP and things like that, because they've got to use a laptop and they might actually have no hands or one arm, they could be a wounded soldier, they could have any kind of disability at all. And I feel very strongly that they should bring in the idea of accepting audio applications, not just things which are keyed into a keyboard, because somebody else could do it for you, but then it's not technically your application. So I think the system is very, very flawed. All these online applications are very, very flawed. Also, as far as tax is concerned, when people, I don't like this divisive taxpayers versus non-taxpayers. Why on earth, if we have council tax bans, do we not put all people in a band anyway for paying like a tiny amount if they're not working, a bigger amount depends.
I mean, there's a lot in that, Melanie. Just let me push back a little bit. When it comes to taxpayers, I think it's perfectly reasonable for taxpayers to say, where is my tax going? And actually, is it supporting the right people? And as I say, and I've said a couple of times, I'm not demonising anybody who is genuinely disabled. I'm not demonising anybody who genuinely can't find work. What I want is a benefit system that works, and we all want that. But if you're getting £32,200 a year for doing nothing, there will be people who will legitimately talk about that and question that.
Well, I think that needs to be double-checked that there's not a mistake there, because I've never met anyone in my life.
Well, it's true, I'm afraid. No, Melanie, it's true. It's researched by the Conservative Party. The Department of Work and Pensions has not said that information isn't right. So, I mean, you might not have met those people, but there are a number of people who are getting that money.
Is that in London, though, or is that...
No, it's right across the country. It's 625,618 households given more than £32,200 in welfare payouts last year. That is the official figure.
Okay, and where has that figure come from, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, as I just said a second ago, it's come from Conservative Party analysis, but it has not been denied by the Department of Work and Pensions. They've actually confirmed it.
Okay, so we've got nowhere where we can look this figure up and have
you can look it up. It's been reported, Melanie. It's been reported widely in the media today. It has not been denied by the Department of Work and Pensions.
It's not been specified where it's come from. Which document is that in?
I've said on a number of occasions where it has come from. It has come from Conservative research, and the Department for Work and Pensions has not said that the figures are wrong.
I'm sorry, that's not specific enough. Sorry, that's not good enough. Thank you.
Okay, well, Melanie, that's fine. As I've said now, I think 4 times, it is the Conservative Party that has put out this analysis. If you want to look it up, Melanie, you're more than welcome to do so. Just Google it and have a look. And as I say, the Department of Work and Pensions have had their view on it, and they say a government spokesman said that 2% of households receiving this level of support have the highest needs and require extra support. The benefit cap exempts households where one or more residents have a severe disability requiring extra support and are among the most vulnerable in our society, and it is right that they receive it. A bit of breaking news, and that is that the Madeleine McCann case yesterday was the anniversary of her disappearance. The Metropolitan Police are seeking a UK trial for the suspect, Christian Bruckner, for the abduction and murder of Madeleine McCann. That is news from the Metropolitan Police. If we get more on that between now and 10 o'clock, of course, we will bring it to you. Dave is in London and is on the line, 0344 499 1000. Dave, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Well done for persevering with Melanie there. Sometimes people can't accept the facts they're facing. But anyway, I was calling up about the anti-Semitism issue.
Yeah.
I think it's time we stopped calling it anti-Semitism. The problem is Islamism. The problem is not anti-Semitism.
I totally agree with you that I totally agree with you that Islamism is a huge and growing problem. What I would say as well is that a lot of people are anti-Semitic who aren't Islamists as well. You know, there are a lot of people who find anti-Semitism just something that is just part of their lives, and they feel perfectly relaxed about saying the sorts of things they would never say about black people, gay people, trans people, you know, whoever.
Fine, okay. For that group of people, it is also not anti-Semitism. It is adjacent Islamism.
Okay, that's what you would call it. Yeah, okay.
Yes, so it is all it's either Islamism or it's adjacent Islamism. I know it's hard to say, but we need to, because if you surveyed 100 Jews in Golders Green and said, do you fear walking down the street and bumping into a white supremacist in a football scarf that's going to beat you up? Mm-hmm. I suspect 1% would say yes, 99% would say no. If you said, do you fear walking down the street where someone with a Middle Eastern appearance is coming towards you, maybe in a hoodie with stuff on his back, I'd say they probably would say yes. So it's. I just think that there's so much whataboutery now, and I think you mentioned it earlier, where people can't kind of call it out without dragging in Gaza or dragging in something else. And Trevor Phillips was great on this today or yesterday, whenever he was on. He's just saying, I'm not having any of that.
Yeah. And what I would say, Dave, is when you're having that discussion, a bit of advice I would give people, and I've done this myself, is if you're talking about anti-Semitism, don't you say the words Israel, Gaza, Middle East. Just don't mention it at all. Don't say the words. Then someone brings it up and you say, hold on a second. What's that going to do with anti-Semitism in this country? Yes, there's an element there, but you've brought it up. Why have you brought it up? And I would kind of check their behaviour, because there are a lot of people who hold, Jewish people in this country responsible for what's happening in the Middle East. It's absurd. It's like me saying, you, Dave, you live in London. Everything Keir Starmer says and does is your responsibility. Yeah,
and on that issue, when the three Cobra members, which is a joke with itself, Starmer, Khan and Rowley, came out of their Cobra meeting, Khan said something like, Londoners are frightened. I'm a Londoner. I'm not frightened because I'm not Jewish. So he skirted around it again to make it all Londoners are frightened.
Well, and he says an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. I just think that's nonsense.
No, it isn't.
I just think it's just total nonsense. It is an attack on the Jewish community. Why can't he just say that?
Well, exactly. It's not an attack on all of us. It's not an attack on me. So if you're listening, Mr. Khan, I live in London. I don't feel frightened by this at all. But if I was Jewish, I would feel terrified. So this is what we have to start calling out now and stop people doing their little whataboutery. And that's why I'm saying I don't like the term anti-Semitism anymore. It kind of shrouds the problem. The problem is Islamism, or it's the useful idiots that are adjacent Islamists. They are.
And there are a lot of useful idiots around. I would argue Zach Polanski is one of them, Dave.
Well, I mean, I think the good news for the Greens now is, or the bad news is, that people are now realising they're not the Green Party, meaning trees, lakes.
They're not the tree huggers anymore, and they talk very little about that, Dave. They rarely mention the environment these days.
They don't at all, and now they can't anyway, because sadly, poor old. He's not called Zach Polanski, by the way. He's called Dave Featherbed, whatever his name is.
I think he changed his name by deed poll, so it's a little bit like saying, Cliff Richard's name isn't really Cliff Richard, it's Harry Webb. I mean, he changed it by deed poll, so it is his name.
Well, from a journalist's point of view, whenever someone goes Tommy Robinson, they put in brackets, AKA Stephen Yaxley Lennon.
But his legal name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. So it's perhaps angels dancing on the head of a pin, Dave, but I'll take the point. Listen, thank you, Dave, in London. Lots of common sense in that. Plenty more to discuss. We'll talk anti-Semitism or Islamist adjacent racism, however you want to describe it, with Gary Mond. He's the chairman of the Reformed Jewish Alliance. Lots to discuss with him in just a second. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk now about anti-Semitism. It's a really interesting clip. It's been sent to me by a viewer, actually, of a heckler taking on Kemi Badenoch. Let me tell you something. You take on Kemi Badenoch, she is going to tackle you as well. Let's just have a little look at this. This is the leader of the Conservative Party tackled by a heckler on the issue of anti-Semitism. We'll get Gary Mond's reaction in a second, but just let's have a watch and listen to this clip.
Right, fantastic. The rise of attacks from the Muslim people, though. Fantastic. Are they not worth protecting?
Thank you. The people who've died and who've been killed were Jewish people in synagogues. Let's stop pretending that something else is happening.
But this isn't about...
No, it is. It very much is. It very much is. It very much is about Jewish people. And you can say all that you like, but this is how the 1930s started, with people pretending not to see what was happening in front of them. I am not blind. I can see. No. I'm telling people the truth, and they will always know that I stand behind Jewish people and I stand for them. I'm sorry, but I disagree with you. You just have to accept that. Yes, that's too bad. That's too bad. People know where I stand, and I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going. No. I am the right. I am the right. Yes, and I'm very proud of being on the right. I'm not pandering to the far right. What I am doing is supporting. No. What I'm doing is supporting Jewish people from the sort of ignorance people like you put out there, and I will never be intimidated by it.
Kemi Badenoch there campaigning in Billericay in Essex, and she was taken on by a heckler there. She gave as good as she got. Gary Mond is with me now. There's so many different issues to talk about. Zach Polanski, we'll look at a clip of him in a second. What did you make of Kemi Badenoch's reaction to that heckler there, Gary? You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Well, I have to say it was excellent. She said what she had to say, and she was completely correct. However, I just wish she had been taking a similar attitude back towards the end of 2023, when she was asked to support the banning of the pro-Palestinian marches and declined to do so. One has to wonder whether she will be as strong in government, should she ever be leading a government, than she is in what she just said now, which, and of course, I completely agree with everything she just said now.
Can I just raise something, actually, Gary, which I think we'll probably be in agreement with? I'm delighted that there are a load of people in the last week. It's a horrific, awful attack that happened in Golders Green. I wouldn't wish it to happen to my worst enemy. It's a dreadful thing, and rightly the law is taking its course, and we'll be careful because there are active charges within that. What I have noticed time and again, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are quite a lot of Johnny-come-latelys to this argument going, oh yes, anti-Semitism's dreadful. My friend's Jewish and says, you know, this terrible thing has happened, or, you know, the kids' football match has to have security guards or whatever. And I just noticed quite a lot of people who suddenly seem to think that anti-Semitism is a problem. We have been having these conversations for at least 2.5 years, if not longer, Gary, since the 7th of October and beyond. Why is it now, do you think, that so many people, including media commentators who should know better, are actually getting on board with this issue and realising that anti-Semitism is a massive problem, and it has been for a long time, particularly in the last 2.5 years?
In a single sentence, it's that Jewish blood has now been spilled in London. That is the simple answer to your question. But you see, if we look over the attitude of politicians going back the last 2.5 years, you can split politicians into two camps. Those who like fawning on the Jewish community and those who actually propose action. And I think that hopefully the number in the latter category is growing and the number in the former category is shrinking. And when we say propose action, there is a myriad of areas of action that are needed. We've heard from Nigel Farage concerning the need to ban the IRGC and the Muslim Brotherhood and to send the Iranian ambassador home. Iran is one of the areas. Another area is all the aspects of British life where anti-Semitism has pervaded, in the schools, in the hospitals, in universities, in the courts, with the police, and even in the world of entertainment.
It's interesting with Maureen Lipman as well, and you mentioned certainly the London aspect of this. I mean, it's just I'm just airing this thought here, and I'm not really making a particularly strong point here, but I'm just saying that, you know, Heaton Park, where 2 people died, was what, 6-7 months ago, and it doesn't seem to have had the same effect as a very serious, horrible, awful, but nonetheless less serious, because no one died, even though it's an awful thing, and I'm not saying for a second that it's a good thing, but it is factually less serious than Heaton Park. But now we have all these people suddenly saying this is an issue. I wonder if Zach Polanski is part of this as well. I just want to have a little look at how he reacted to Laura Kuenssberg, the BBC, yesterday when he was asked about the phrase globalise the intifada. Now, to me, that is a straightforwardly anti-Semitic phrase. That is a straightforward call for Jews to be killed. When he was tackled about this on the BBC by Laura Kuenssberg, this is how the Green Party leader reacted. This is how the conversation went.
Do you think that the Prime Minister is correct to say that saying or chanting globalise the intifada is racist?
No, I don't think that's correct. I think it's important that we make sure that we have freedom of speech in this country and freedom of protest. We've seen a genocide that's been going on for years in Israel now, of which our government is not just complicit, but actively selling arms and intelligence. And I don't believe policing people's language is what's going to prevent, is going to make Jewish safety any better in this country.
Just to clarify, Zach Polanski's factually wrong. It is not a genocide. Gary, your thoughts on Zach Polanski?
I actually have a very simplistic view of Zach Polanski. He is a clown and he's going to be found out. He's also anti-Semitic, and we've been watching the revelations about Green Party candidates, which are coming thick and fast concerning their anti-Semitism. Now, I have every sympathy with voters of candidates in all political parties. It's not an easy job to do, but the Green Party seem to be far more prone to having these Jew-hater candidates than the other parties.
Well, I think given that Keir Starmer, I will criticise Keir Starmer for many, many things, but one thing he got right was he got rid of a lot of anti-Semites from the Labour Party, many of whom were supporters of Jeremy Corbyn, who I also believe, in my sincerely held personal belief, is an anti-Semite. He would deny that. The point is that those people didn't go nowhere, did they? And I think we're seeing an Islamist takeover of the Green Party.
Oh, that's undeniable. Absolutely. They don't really talk about green issues anymore, environmental issues, which, of course, were quite attractive to many people, particularly younger people. Now they are becoming essentially a party that wants to see Sharia law and other aspects of Islam brought to this country. And, of course, that means there'll be no place for Jews and indeed Christians, for that matter.
Gary, always good to talk to you. Gary Mond there, chairman of the Reform Jewish Alliance. What do you think about what he said there? 0344 499 1000. We'll get to more calls, of course, as time goes on throughout the programme. We're going to talk in just a second about food prices soaring 50% in just 5 years, the cost of living crisis biting, and a cost of a pint hitting £10 for a pint of beer in London for the first time. Plenty to discuss on that. And just before we go to the break, I just want to say very, very briefly that I received some very sad news today, and that is about my friend Ian Craig. Ian, who was sometimes known as Paddy Craig, was a great friend of mine. He was my neighbour. In fact, he was often referred to in these programmes as Jack's uncle, my cat's uncle, because he looked after Jack on many occasions, including memorably once where he turned up in gardening gloves to help me put Jack in the box for the vet, something Jack was not a huge fan of. Ian was someone who had a number of careers. He was a policeman. He ran a DIY shop. He also worked in finance at various points. He was a great neighbour and a great friend, and I just wanted to say, and a great fan of talk as well, actually. I would often get messages from him. He messaged me from his hospital bed in recent weeks, actually, because he had chemotherapy. He very sadly died yesterday, and I want to say to him and his family and to his great friend Annika, who is my neighbour as well, that my thoughts are with you, and Ian will be very, very sadly missed. He was a great friend of Nick Dubois as well, and I spoke to Nick earlier on today. Nick, of course, is a presenter on these stations, so Ian Craig will be remembered, certainly. Lots more to discuss in just a second here on Talk.
welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Debbie, who says, I'm a Londoner and I'm frightened for all of us that live and are from there. I hate the fact that Jewish people are being persecuted. It disgusts me. We need to get a grip of this country. I'm sick of the crime and the fact that the government does nothing. Margaret's been in touch and said, you're too young to remember the BT adverts with Maureen Lipman. They were fantastic. I do remember the BT adverts from the dim and distant past. Maybe it was just replays of them or whatever, but she was BT, wasn't she? And it was before Bob Hoskins and It's Good to Talk and all the rest of it. Warm wishes to Maureen, says Margaret. And thank you, Maureen, Margaret, for that. Maureen Lipman, of course, has been pursued. It's a horrible, horrible campaign against her. She's meant to be at an event. She's playing at a theatre in Aberdeen, and there's just some horrible anti-Semitism about her. But Margaret, a nice reminder actually of Maureen Lipman's brilliant comedic skill, certainly in those BT ads. And I don't know why I remember them, but I do. Maybe I can't remember quite when they were, but certainly from my childhood, maybe I just saw repeats of them or whatever. Rick says, I was a policeman in London during the late 70s and early 80s. I remember the Israeli aircrew being escorted to their hotels from Heathrow by armed police officers. The Israeli embassy was the most guarded in London. Anti-Semitism is not a recent phenomenon. Rick, you're absolutely right. It's as old as time, and certainly we know that, as you correctly say, when you were a policeman, that was happening. I would argue that things have just got completely off the scale, certainly in the last 2.5 years since the 7th of October, when so many people have a view on this. And interestingly, one of my viewers has got in touch to say about what she calls the Johnny-come-latelys, the people who have just suddenly decided and realised, hold on a second, we've got a problem with anti-Semitism. So there's a lot in that, I think. I want to talk about hospitality. Food prices soaring 50% in just 5 years as the cost of living crisis bites. Also, the cost of a pint hitting £10 in some London pubs for the first time. Michael Kill is Chief Executive of the Nighttime Industries Association. Michael, thank you for joining us this evening. Let's go to the second story first. £10 for a pint of beer? That just seems extortionate. Is it fair?
It's astonishing. I think it's something we've seen coming for some time. I know that we've had this escalation in pricing. The businesses at the sharp end on the high street have been trying to stave this off. But as you can appreciate, with the overseas conflicts really impacting in terms of energy, and that also is compounded by the supply chain costs going up, we can only stave it off for some time. So I think £10, which I think that's been sort of quoted from the Mayfair area.
Yeah, I mean that's a very expensive area of the most expensive city in the country. So that's an extreme, but it is happening.
Without a doubt. And I mean, there are predictions floating around at the moment suggesting that within the next decade, we are going to see £10 a base rate for a pint, which is a huge concern. And it's something that the government just really need to deal with. I mean, the problem we've got two sides to this. We've got the cost of operating, which has gone up exponentially, over 40% for many businesses. And then we've got the cost of daily living, which people are pressured on, and this is where the food element.
And the thing is, Michael, I want to go to my local pub. I love my local pub. It's a great pub. They do great staff, great service, lovely food, excellent pub quiz. I'm not a drinker, but I don't mind going there. It's great. It's a lovely place. But I went for lunch with a friend on Friday. We didn't have a huge amount of food. She had a glass of wine that was £14 for a glass of wine. Okay, these are London prices. I get it. I had some I think I had some soda water with lime. I had a salad and some chips. I mean, it'll shock people to learn that I do occasionally eat salads. She had some mussels or something like that. 66 quid. I mean, that's not something, I'm not complaining about my salary at all. I never would. And I realise that I'm on more money than some people. But the point is that that's a lot of money. And I'm going to think again about going for lunch there because it is so pricey.
As you can appreciate, I mean, this is impacting. I mean, a lot of businesses are monitoring their footfall, how much money people are spending, how much time they're spending in the venues, and they're being very sensitive to pricing. But you can only stave it off so long. And I really would urge everyone to understand that this is not at the landlords or the business owners' feet. They have to do something to actually sustain their businesses. And many of them are, as we say, there are people coming in and enjoying the social and cultural economy, but the reality is the margins are just not there. In fact, 7 out of 10 businesses are either barely breaking even or losing money, which is a bigger concern because we know we've lost so many.
And if you're in a situation where you're at home, where your food prices are going up by 50%, you're less likely to go to a pub. This is a vicious circle, really, isn't it? Because people will say, the next time my friend comes over, I'll say, just come to the flat and we'll have some food there, which in itself will be more expensive, but the pub will lose out. So that's just one example. It's just an anecdote. But there are lots of people making these decisions all the time. I don't want my local pub to close. I want to be a good citizen. I want to be a good local, and I want to support them. But there are a lot of people feeling the pinch.
Without a doubt. And I think, as you quite rightly said, it's an ever-decreasing circle. I think what we've also got to recognise how important they are for those social hub experiences, the health capital, which we don't talk about very often, just about being around people, enjoying culture, new music, being able to meet up with friends, whether it's football, a birthday, etc. Really, really important from a community perspective. So it's important to support. But the reality is this really is something the government need to look at. And they've, in many respects, ignored it for a period of time and piled on the tax pressure that we've seen over the course of the last, really, 3 years, including previous regime of government. So
it's really interesting you mentioned that, actually, about the social heart of many communities and the fact that with more than a quarter of locals having called time for good since 2000, the Daily Mail reporting that experts found that as a result, many people lost friendships, support networks, and their sense of an area's identity. This is a big issue with pubs as well. It's not just a place people go to drink alcohol. I mean, I don't go there to drink alcohol. A lot of people go there for lots of different reasons, and there is a real virtue in the social aspect too, as you say.
It's like we keep talking about health capital, which I think is a really important word to sort of harness. Even if you just look at the bare minimum of just people being isolated, elderly people being isolated who just want to people watch, places where you can come and enjoy with the kids, sit in the garden, have a meal, and families meet up there. This is a hub of communities.
And people notice as well. There was an elderly gent who was my neighbour for a number of years in a house I lived in previously, and he would go to our local pub, and the bar staff worked out that we were neighbours. He didn't come in for a few days, and they said, have you seen Charlie? Is he doing okay? And he was absolutely fine. But it's just that little extra thing where people say, he would usually come in for breakfast late in the day kind of thing. And this is something that people do notice.
I think the one thing that you've got to remember, I mean, we have a saying within the industry, is something called the power of hello.
Yeah.
And just the fact that people are recognised, if you're living on your own, you're in an elderly home, or whether you have accessibility challenges, just actually being recognised or part of a community, someone knowing your name, knowing what drink, what food you order, is something that just brings you in. So I think the identity of these pubs are vitally important for community.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you as always. Michael Kildare, who's Chief Executive of the Nighttime Industries Association. What do you think about this? It's not just the pubs, but the price of food as well. Maybe you're noticing it, and apparently it may well go up yet further in the next few months. Food inflation completely out of control. We'll talk about these new migrant detention centres. I know a lot of people want to talk about that. Also, we'll speak to a volunteer grave cleaner who's been told by a local councillor that his services are not required. Stay with us here on Talk.
some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Yes, it's me again, your...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 9 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. Lots to talk about, including Reform UK pledging to open new migrant detention centres in green voting areas. Is that a good policy? What do you think? The Green Party says it's outrageous. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. The local elections are this week, all to play for, and big Labour losses expected. We'll speak to the political editor of The Independent in just a second. We'll also talk more, as you want to, about Iran, anti-Semitism, tax avoidance, welfare. Loads to discuss, especially on welfare, where welfare pays more than work for 600,000 households. We'll talk too to the volunteer grave cleaner who was told by his local council that actually they didn't want him to clean graves. He was doing it voluntarily. He'd done it because his friend had taken his own life. We'll speak to Ben McGregor a little bit later on. We'll also take your calls, text, tweets and voice notes, and speak to Simon Calder as well, the transport correspondent of The Independent, about parking fines to double. Labour's war on the motorist continues. So much to discuss. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 here on Talk. Right, let's get straight into this, because Zach Polanski is having all sorts of scrutiny to him, not least by Trevor Phillips, the master interviewer of Sky News, and he put quite a number of points to him about anti-Semitism, about the marches, about globalising the Intifada. Another interviewer talked to him about that. This is against the backdrop, of course, of those dreadful, horrific attacks last week in Golders Green, where 2 people were stabbed. A suspect is now being charged, and we'll be careful what we say about that. In the meantime, Reform UK has pledged to open new migrant detention centres in green voting areas. Let's just have a little look at Trevor Phillips on Sky News interviewing Zach Polanski about his views.
There's also times where we hear marches, Palestinian marches, that I as a Jewish person walk on, where Jewish people say that makes them feel unsafe. Now, I don't think that actually makes them unsafe, clearly, because I'm a Jewish person who is on that march. So I think it's about having a conversation about how do we ensure that Jewish people are safe and Jewish people feel safe at times when they may perceive themselves to be unsafe.
Oh, that's interesting. So these marches where many Jewish people, frankly, most Jewish people that you or I would meet, say that they feel it makes them unsafe. Let me put a, if like, a thought experiment to you. Imagine you are talking to Shlomi Rand or Norman Shine, the two men who were stabbed in Golders Green. How do you persuade them that what happened to them was somehow kind of in their imaginations? I mean, you've got to be clear about this. You can't have it both ways. Either there is something real here, or you're saying that some Jewish people are not making it up, but they're imagining something that is real that isn't real.
Trevor, that's an outrageous distortion of what I just said.
No, I'm kind of repeating what you've just said, what you said earlier in the week, and what you've just said to me, actually.
So, Trevor Phillips there interviewing Zach Polanski, holding his feet to the fire, I think. Zach Polanski also interviewed yesterday morning by Laura Kuenssberg of the BBC, who put to him the point about this phrase, globalise the intifada, which I think is really straightforwardly anti-Semitic, really straightforwardly calling for the death of Jews. And globalising that intifada is exactly what happened on Thursday. Let's see what Zach Polanski said to the BBC.
Do you think that the Prime Minister is correct to say that saying or chanting globalise the intifada is racist?
No, I don't think that's correct. I think it's important that we make sure that we have freedom of speech in this country and freedom of protest. We've seen a genocide that's been going on for years in Israel now, of which our government is not just complicit, but actively selling arms and intelligence. And I don't believe policing people's language is what's going to prevent, is going to make Jewish safety any better in this country.
Policing language is not a good thing. I mean, I don't think it's a good thing to police language too much, but if someone's going to go around calling to globalise the intifada, well, that is straightforwardly incitement. So does he not believe that incitement is a thing? It's been a part of UK law for a long time. All of this is the context, of course, of the local elections in England, the Scottish parliamentary elections and the Welsh Assembly elections this week. The Green Party are doing pretty well in the polls, Reform UK doing even better, and they're in a situation where they've talked today, Zia Youssef, about opening new migrant detention centres in green voting areas. For more on this and the wider political scene, David Maddox is with us, the political editor of The Independent. David, good evening. Tell us about this reform policy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's whenever you think Zia Youssef can't dream up something new, he pulls one out of a hat. And yeah, this idea that they're going to open up migrant centres in green voting areas. I mean, clearly they're kind of playing on the kind of whole Zach Polanski business, and they were the ones who were putting it to Zach Polanski well before the rest of us were, actually, to be fair on them. But it's I mean, it's to grab a headline. It's not a serious policy, which I'm afraid is part of reforms.
Could it not be enacted if they wanted it to be? Is it not something that if they won the election, surely they could decide where they wanted these detention centres to be?
Well, I mean, it is in a way. I mean, I remember, it kind of reminds me of Tory MPs back in the last Conservative government complaining about hotels being used in their constituencies and asking why they weren't, these kind of asylum seekers weren't being put in hotels in Labour constituencies and things. I mean, this kind of narrative is common in all parties, really. But it's I think it would be actually harder for reform. I mean, like many of the things reform suggests, it would actually be harder for them to do than to actually say.
It's interesting as well within all of that Reform UK doing very well in the polls, the Green Party doing well too. I wonder what you make of the performance of Labour at the moment. Lots of speculation about Keir Starmer's future and lots in the papers, as there always is, I suppose, but more so at the moment about Andy Burnham, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting. Just give us your thoughts on what happened this week, what the likelihood is. Tell us a little bit about the Conservatives and the Lib Dems as well, and where Starmer stands, next Monday.
I think Labour are heading to a kind of historic level crushing defeat. I mean, obviously one can't take voters totally for granted, but the kind of projections which are coming out from respected people like Lord Robert Hayward and John Curtis as well.
Two very respected pollsters who often get it absolutely bang on.
Yeah, hugely respected. Hayward was talking about them losing 1,850 seats. I mean, it'd be 70% of what they're defending. And these things have existential consequences, beyond the initial pain of a defeat. This is losing their ground troops in future elections because these parties depend so much on councillors.
And volunteers as well, who may not, maybe the husband, the wife, the friend of that councillor, and those people aren't going to go out and knock the doors and put the literature through the letterboxes in the future as well. It's a very, very good point.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely catastrophic for them, and the Tories are going to suffer heavy losses as well, despite something of a fight back from Kemi Badenoch. They still haven't. As a party, they still haven't really recovered. I think they're looking at about 500 if you look at the projections. And Reform are they can't lose really. They're coming from almost zero in terms of, and they're going to gain hundreds and hundreds of seats. As of the Greens, not as many, but quite a lot. I think the Greens are really looking towards London. And that's what, kind of coming back to Labour, that's what's really going to hurt Keir Starmer, is a kind of potential wipeout in London, which is really the kind of the base of membership and money for the Labour Party more than anything else. And it's going to be very, very painful indeed.
What does this say? Well, how does this change politics? Because obviously we've got a few Green MPs, we've got a few Reform UK MPs, but when we look at the polls and how that might be replicated at a national election, obviously there isn't one of those. There isn't a general election probably for 2.5, 3 years. I mean, politics is changing very, very dramatically at the moment, and we have a multi-party. We certainly don't have a 2 or 3 party system. We have more like a 6 or 7 party system at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing playing out in this country is playing out in across Western Europe, really. The traditional parties are falling away. I mean, if you look across the channel to France, the old socialists and Republican parties, which used to dominate there, are now kind of fringe parties almost. They've almost disappeared compared to Macron's party and Le Pen's party there, who kind of taken their places. It's not kind of over for Labour and the Conservatives by any means. There is actually a few years to actually fight back, but we're certainly kind of heading to a much more fragmented system. I can't actually believe that anybody's going to be able to win a majority at the next election unless something dramatically happens.
I think you might be right. I think it's a massive uphill struggle for any party to do that, and I think we're into coalitions probably of some description. David, always worth listening to your common sense and your analysis. Thank you. David Maddox there, political editor of The Independent. Lots of people getting in touch, including Derek in Preston, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. I think it's benefits you want to talk about, Derek. Just tell us your story.
Really, I got diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, depression and stress. Are you still there? Yeah?
I am, yeah. No, I'm just listening to you, Derek. I'm sorry to hear that happened. You've clearly been through a lot.
Yeah. It took me about 4 months to get some counselling. And I was offered 12 sessions. I had 4 over the phone, and within 4, I was completely cured.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's some effective therapy right there.
Yeah. No, it was just great to speak to somebody, and I'm just thinking now, all these people that are claiming that they've got all these mental health issues, all they need to do, and I got a part-time job, and that was it. I was cured.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an astonishing recovery. Many people will, do you not have any symptoms of all those different things that you mentioned there? It just all went away?
The PTSD was the worst thing. I was getting all these... PTSD was the worst thing ever. I won't go into why.
No, and there's no need to, Derek, if you don't want to. But I wonder whether that job and that therapy together was actually, I mean, it worked for you. Do you think it would work for lots of people?
Oh yeah, definitely. As I said, I had 4 sessions and that was it.
Well, that's good.
It was over the phone. It wasn't face to face or anything like that.
And are you still working now, Derek?
Yeah, I've got a part-time job now. Yeah.
And things are good.
Yeah.
So do you get any benefits, Derek, now, or what's the situation now?
No. Funny enough, I'm 63 years old. I worked for 40 years in civil service.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, I worked for HMRC. I was a finance investigator. And that's what did it for me. But
okay.
Thing is now, I hear all these politicians saying that they want to get people back into work.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if you're an employee, an employer, and you're trying to get people into work that have been out of work for 5-10 years or whatever, they're not going to take anybody into work.
Yeah, it's very true.
They're not going to do it. Honestly, it's just ridiculous, to be honest.
How did people react during your career when you said you worked for HMRC?
Well, the funny thing is, I was an investigator, so I prosecuted people.
Okay.
So I wasn't. Civil service is the reason why I left was because it just got so woke.
Right.
You couldn't. It was so difficult to be a civil servant, and it was really woke.
Goodness me. Well, listen, Derek, thank you very much. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing is,
go ahead.
Politicians will not call out anti-Jew, and they won't do it, will they?
Well, they need to, and we did see Kemi Badenoch calling it out there, and some others do as well. Derek, really interesting call there. Thanks, and I wish you I feel a bit like Fraser Crane. I wish you good mental health, but I do wish you good mental health, and I'm delighted things are going very, very well for you, and that part-time job is going well, and long may that continue, Derek, as long as you want that job, as long as it works for you. Craig says, hi Peter, I don't buy the poll numbers. I don't believe the people who say they will vote Green will actually do it when they're in a voting booth. I think Labour are going to claim a victory because they won't lose as many as the Greens as they're expected to. I think they'll carry Starmer through to the next election. It'll be fascinating to see. Full coverage, of course, here on Talk, and I'll be on Friday night as usual between 7 and 9, and maybe popping up in a few other places as well with a bit of analysis as the results of the local elections and the Scottish parliamentary elections and the Welsh Assembly elections continue. Really interesting story next. You're going to want to hear this one. This guy's name is Ben McGregor. He's a volunteer grave cleaner. He has decided to clean some graves as a really nice thing, a really public-spirited, good thing to do, because his best friend, or a very good friend of his, lost his life, took his own life because of suicide. He lost his father and his best friend to suicide. So Ben voluntarily washes headstones in order to do his bit for the community. Right then, what does South Tyneside Council do? They ordered him to stop after it was made aware graves were being cleaned without authorisation. Ooh, isn't that dreadful that a grave is cleaned? Honestly, these absolute killjoys, public-spirited person, this is it drives me mad that, by degrees, it chips away at these good people like Ben, who want to do something for their community because it wasn't authorised. Oh, it's not in our books. Oh, health and safety. Just pipe down. Let Ben do what he wants to do. He's doing nobody any harm. In fact, he's doing a very, very good thing, a very kind thing, a very nice thing to a lot of people. A lot of people who can't get out to clean graves. They can't. They worry about their loved one's grave perhaps falling into disrepair. Ben was someone who was helping them. We're going to talk to him in just a second. Stay with us.
welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Sinks, that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So Ben McGregor has received so many accolades from lots of people because he voluntarily cleans graves. He's done 24 graves so far. And Hebburn Cemetery Gravestone Transformations, he's received glowing messages such as, "You're a wonderful, kind and caring human being. I'm sure his dad died a few years ago. Your dad will be looking down with immense pride. You're doing amazingly. Keep up the good work." This is Ben McGregor. He's a very public-spirited individual. He's been told by South Tyneside Council he needs to stop cleaning graves. Well, Ben, I'm delighted to say, joins me now. Ben, I'm really sorry you're going through what you're going through. You're clearly a good person who is doing really good work that a lot of people appreciate. Can you just tell me why you decided to clean the graves voluntarily?
Well, what I was doing beforehand, I was already in the cemeteries in another volunteering group, but I kind of got, well, it kind of parted ways from there, so I thought I still want to volunteer in the cemetery. So I thought, why not help clean the gravestones up? Because my dad's bench is at the cemetery, and I was sitting there and I just thought, it just needs some of the graves just need cleaned up. So I just thought, well, I made the page, and then I just thought, all these people are coming forward asking to get the graves cleaned, so I thought I'll do it. And then another one, and then another one, and then so far now I've done 28 now.
28.
28.
And
28.
Ben, you're a young man, but unfortunately,
yeah,
you know, death is a part of life, and you've had 2 bereavements in the last few years. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's all come down to suicide. So I just feel like, as well, why I've done it, because you just don't know what people are going through, and that little bit that I'm doing could save someone's life as well.
Does it help you?
Oh, massively. I feel like the way I've coped with things, because I've suffered with mental health myself, so I feel like the way of, well, but what I see it as, if I'm helping someone, it makes me feel better.
Tell me
about doing that, helping the community out.
Yes.
It makes me feel better.
And your dad, David, I know you lost a few years ago, and you have a good friend as well who lost his life to suicide. I just wonder, tell me about the kind of people that are asking you to clean the graves. Are they maybe people who can't do it themselves, or elderly people? Just tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah. Basically, what it is, it's one of them that actually sticks in my mind. It's a woman who suffers with cancer, and she can no longer clean the grave. So I just thought I'd help her, and she's been suffering with cancer for 4 plus years, and she says it's the nicest thing someone's ever done for her.
That's lovely. So you're in a situation, Ben, where you're using a bit of elbow grease, soap, water, and a brush to just clean these graves, make them a bit more pleasant, and give a bit of dignity to people who are alive, and of course the people who have died as well. Tell us what happened recently with the council.
Yeah, all right. But so when I first got the first phone call, it was literally about 16 hours after I made the page.
Mm-hmm. So you put a Facebook page up?
Yeah, put a Facebook page up, and then within 16 hours, I had a phone call off them saying, you need to stop, you haven't got our permission to do it. So then since I turned around and says, well, I've got the grave owner's permission, then why can't I do it? And then I says, well, I'll not be stopping. I says, I still want to continue what I'm doing. And then I got another phone call the week after saying exactly the same thing, and then I end up having a meeting the week after that to say it's come down to health and safety. I need a health and safety certificate for what I'm doing. But then when I've looked up about it, that's for businesses.
Okay, so it's not for volunteers.
Yeah, I'm doing it for voluntary.
South Tyneside Council have been in touch with us, and a spokesman said, we greatly value the work of volunteers who help care for our cemeteries and work closely with several established Friends of Cemetery groups across the borough. A borough-wide memorial inspection programme is currently underway, and not all cemeteries have yet been inspected. Once the council became aware that memorials were being cleaned without authorisation, it was required to step in. This reflects the council's general duty to uphold cemetery regulations and is about ensuring everything is done safely and properly, with further discussions planned once checks are complete. Are you doing anything that's not safe or not proper?
There's been a few where I've checked them and they have been unsafe, so I've had to turn them down and say, listen, I can't do it.
And what would be unsafe about it? What would be the...
Would be either wobbly. There's been stuff that have been like, basically nearly ready to fall over. There's been some that have been crumbling, and I've just been like, I can't do it.
Yeah. You need to be careful. But in terms of what you're doing, you're carrying out an assessment yourself. If a grave was to fall on your foot, you're not going to be suing the council as a result of that. I mean, the council says we greatly value the work of volunteers. Do you feel greatly valued?
Absolutely not, because the thing is, what I've done is as well, I actually got insurance to work in the cemetery, and I've still been penalised for it.
So you've actually got insurance. I suppose the question is, why not just get this health and safety certificate that they want you to get? Is that not something you would consider doing, or is that even possible?
That's what I've asked, and it's been one of the top bosses at the council that I've said to him, how can I get that certificate? And he hasn't said nothing. And then since all this has come out, I've still heard nothing off them.
I mean, it just sounds ludicrous. It just sounds as if you're a good guy. Yeah. I mean, have you considered giving this up? Have you considered just saying stuff it? You know, if they're gonna try and stop me doing it.
It's community spirit. Community spirit. You got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Ben, we wish you well. I hope this red tape nightmare is dealt with, and keep in touch and let us know what is happening. That's Ben McGregor. There is a volunteer grave cleaner, the local council stopping him, helping people. I mean, it just seems absolute nonsense, really. I just don't understand. We did read out the spokesman for South Tyneside Council there. I just hope it can be sorted out, because there are a lot of people like that woman who has cancer that Ben was talking about who clearly feel a lot that he has really helped them as well, and really helped people do that by volunteering and giving his time. I've a great uncle who died a few years ago, and I've helped clean his. There's a cross rather than a gravestone, a cross that is there, and I know that's just something that has given a bit of succour and a bit of calm people, and made them feel his grave is tended well, and a well-tended grave is a really important thing, because it's the last thing I suppose you can do for people. Tell me your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about parking fine doubling after the break. We'll take a load more calls right up until 10 o'clock. You want to get your voice in the air, you give me a shout. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who has been in touch, including a Reform voter called Kay Smith, who says, I don't understand why it's nasty and spiteful to give the electorate exactly what they voted for. Surely that's democracy in action. If you vote for a party that advocates for open borders, then surely you should welcome immigrants on your doorstep with open arms. That is the thought there. Lots to discuss on all of this, and plenty of time for calls as well. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can send me a WhatsApp on the main number, or ring me, or send me a voice note on the main number as well, 0344 499 1000. Just want to talk a little bit about parking fines doubling now. This is a big story today. Motorists hammered in so many different ways. For chapter and verse on this, no better man than Simon Calder. I had a nice hug off him this morning. I saw him at another broadcaster. Simon, great to see you again, twice in one day. What an honour. Tell us about these parking fines doubling.
Well, that's pretty much the story. The idea is that councils outside London are increasing the fines. You could find that you have a penalty of £160, which is, even by the standards of, let's say, a day's parking at Heathrow Airport, fairly steep. But I think I'm going to have a different view on this, perhaps from you, Peter, and certainly from an awful lot of the Talk audience, because I think this is actually part of probably what we need in terms of a nudge towards people being persuaded to catch trains instead. And the railways are in a terrible old mess. The roads are too crowded. There will be people who are staggering back from the bank holiday weekend. They've spent hours maybe on the M25, maybe on the M5 going north towards Bristol and Birmingham, and they will be cheesed off. At the same time, and it's not been a great weekend for rail travellers, but the railways are losing about £400 per second. And if you can apply fines which make people think, ouch, that was a bit unnecessary, I think I will take the train next time. That's great. But of course...
But fine for you and me, of course, Simon. We live in London. There's a really good public transport network. There are loads of parts of the country, though, where, as you say, it's unreliable. And also lots of people just don't live near a railway station.
Oh, sure. And that's a real... The problem of nationwide public transport is one which absolutely successive governments haven't grappled with. And if these parking fines were dedicated, if they were ring-fenced, hypothecated, I think is the political term, for improving public transport in your area, then, yeah, of course, people hate paying parking fines.
But of course, that's just not happening. And we know as well that this is based on a survey of, I think, Bournemouth Council. Also, we're in a situation where road tax isn't used on roads, for example. So if there are those hypothecated taxes, I think I could, in theory, get on board with that. But the government, and particularly local councils, are just going to use that for lots of other things they want to pay for, and the motorist will just feel rinsed again. Especially as there are so many people, as you know far better than I do, Simon, who want to park properly and want to be responsible, but it can be a very difficult thing.
Oh, sure, yeah, and obviously, but this really goes into a whole debate about access to town centres, and whether because it's incredibly easy to go to an out-of-town shopping centre and park there, and nobody is going to hit you with a £160 fine. It's a big problem about how we do all these things at once. But there has to be, I think, Peter, a conversation about how of course, the authorities would simply say, you want to avoid these fines, don't park illegally. And so that's unfortunately...
Although weirdly, I had a call a few weeks ago, Simon, from a plumber who was talking about the price of parking in, I think it was Islington in London he was talking about, where it's something like £20 an hour. That he went to a private car park. He said it was very difficult to park publicly. And what he had done was parked in a car parking space, but illegally, not paying the money, and tried to actually seek out a traffic warden to fine him, because the fine would be less than the money in the private car park would be for him to park for a whole day. I mean, it was just an astonishing call.
Oh, sure, yeah, and that's I'm afraid because we're talking here about inner London, that suggests that the fine. I'm so sorry to say this, everybody. Please don't judge me, but the fine isn't sufficient if that is the case, because parking is a premium product in a city such as London, and if it is cheaper to get a fine, then put up the fine, everybody. Very sorry about that.
That's not going to be a popular view, Simon. But listen, thanks for your analysis. Really appreciate it. Simon Calder there, the transport correspondent of The Independent. Janice in Staffordshire has been in touch about the grave cleaner, about Ben. Said, what a ludicrous council. Do they not think that he or people in general can't do their own risk assessments? They, the council, have to give the all clear. They certainly don't like people who can think for themselves. I really hate just how far this health and safety nonsense has gone. I would not be getting the certificate, says Janet in Staffordshire. Debbie has been in touch on grave cleaning. This is what Debbie has to say.
I think this is disgusting. Nobody cares. If no one's actually paying due care and attention to these graveyards, and then people are going in, as long as they're not doing anything wrong, as in the chemicals they're using, why not? Because you walk past cemeteries all the time and they're damaged, they're overgrown. It's unreal. Why? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Debbie, thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's speak to Ron and Tyne and Wear on benefits. You're very welcome to the programme, Ron. What would you like to say?
Hello. First of all, Peter, congratulations to me, 41.
Thank you.
Between 32.
Well, that's James's birthday is 32. I'm not 42 for another month or so. So there's time. I'm clinging on to my early 30s by my fingernails.
Well, on benefits...
Early 40s. Gosh, that was a Freudian slip there. Ron, tell us your thoughts on benefits.
Well, first of all, I'm 75, right? I've got an army pension, did 24 years. That is taxed because I've got an old age pension, which is classed as a benefit.
Okay.
So every other benefit is tax-free. But the main point is general benefits, right? I live in Washington, Tyne and Wear.
Yeah.
30% of people in Washington have never worked in their lives.
Wow. I mean, that is an astonishing statistic. 30% of people.
Absolute fact, just 30%. Now then, some 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I had two little boys, and I only had my army pension, £600 a month. And I was struggling, so I was hitting my credit card, so I didn't want my little boys to know that I was skint.
Yeah. That must have been difficult. That must have been tricky.
All the way down my street, everyone on every side was on benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And there were fat men. I'm going to say fat because I'm old. I'm not going to get away with it. Fat men, fat women, gazebos in the gardens, barbecues, 20 steaks lined up, those are chickens, and I've not had a steak for 5 years.
Goodness me. So when you look at people who don't work in your part of the world, Ron, what do you think?
Well, let me tell you something else. I should take my grandson 10 years ago to kindergarten and then to junior school. And I'd sit back as an old man, single, and I'd listen to the wives talking. And they're always talking about benefits, how to gain the system, how to get more, how to get this. I listened to her mother being advised to pretend that her son was autistic so that they could get more benefits. Now, I stand there in shock, disgusted. So what I'm trying to say is the general scheme of benefits is a scam. Now, I think that 60% of people with benefits shouldn't be on benefits. And I think that the Labour Party, the left wing, they push benefits because they will vote for them, the same as the Muslims. It's all about votes. As soon as they came to power, they increase the benefits.
Okay. Ron, listen, thank you for that. I'm sorry to end the call, but we do have some breaking news, and that is from Washington. The White House has been put into lockdown. The Secret Service has confirmed that it shot a man next to the Washington Monument. Now, that's not very far away. I used to live in Washington, and the Washington Monument is just on the other side of the Lincoln Memorial. We're talking maybe 10 minutes walk from the White House, maybe not even that. All of this is quite central in a smallish area near the what they call the Mall, the Washington Mall. So the White House has been put into lockdown. as the Secret Service has confirmed it has shot a man next to the Washington Monument. US Secret Service confirming officers were on the scene of an officer-involved shooting in Washington in which one person was shot by law enforcement. The spokesman said US Secret Service personnel are on the scene of an officer involved in a shooting on 15th Street and Independence Avenue in Washington, D.C. Now, the White House is 16th and Pennsylvania, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is the actual address of the White House, so not far from 15th Street and Independence Avenue, really not far away from the White House. One individual was shot by law enforcement. Their condition is currently unknown, according to the Secret Service. We'll have more coverage of this in just a minute. Major breaking news from Washington, D.C., and that is that the White House has been put into lockdown as the Secret Service has confirmed it shot a man not far away beside the Washington Monument. We'll do more on that in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Sinks, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So numerous American news outlets reporting, because the reporters themselves in the White House have actually been put into the press briefing room for their own safety. The lockdown is apparently lifted. It was a very brief White House lockdown lifted, but shots fired reported near 15th and Independence Avenue. That's just a few blocks from the White House. The White House is 16th and Pennsylvania. Its actual address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, so really not far away. The journalists were rushed off the North Lawn into a briefing room as a precaution. Secret Service gave the all clear quickly, says a reporter on the scene. This is Alec Lace, who I'm reading here, who is a reporter who's in the White House at the moment. And there are no injuries. President Trump is apparently safe. He's at a small business event inside the White House. For reaction to this, especially in the context of last weekend, just last week actually, where we had, of course, the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Hilton Hotel in Washington a lot less safe as a place. Matt Blinsky is with us. He's a podcast host and looks at these matters very, very in great detail. So Matt, yet another security alert. We don't know the full details now of this shooting, which was by Secret Service officers. We're told confirming officers, the US Secret Service confirming officers on the scene, an officer-involved shooting in Washington in which one person was shot by law enforcement. We know that was near the Washington Monument, which is just a couple of blocks away from the White House. Concerning times in the American capital, Matt.
No doubt, but on the other hand, you kind of wonder whether it's almost surprising this doesn't happen more often, given the volume and extent of the threats and the seeming chaos in the political economy in the United States. And then you kind of go look historically, and a lot of people do forget how much political violence was experienced in the United States from the late 60s through the early 80s. And it would really shock people how often these sorts of incidents did happen during that period. Now they're of course, more newsworthy because, they aren't as common. However, the condensed activity here that seems to be people, unhinged people trying to commit acts of violence against politicians, including the president, certainly concerning.
Certainly, Matt, and there'll be a lot of worried people. Reporters, of course, caught up in this as well, and when you have a president who, frankly, a lot of people want to kill, as is the case with any high-profile individual, a lot of political leaders here in the UK, we have 6 members of the cabinet of 24-hour police protection and lots of ex-prime ministers as well. Clearly, this threat is major to Trump himself, more so now, it would appear, than even in his first term.
Yeah. And once again, you try to rationalize why so much of this is happening now, because to be perfectly honest, the temperature around Donald Trump during his first administration was probably even hotter. It is kind of, settled at a nice, more normalization during his second term. But it seems like more people, perhaps the Secret Service was catching people earlier in the process of planning these events during the first administration. That could be one explanation, but it's really hard to tell because people, once again, memory hole and have a little amnesia over just how toxic and how acrimonious the political discourse was during the first Trump term. And it does once again seem to be, the temperature has decreased a little bit, but you're starting to see these incidents. Perhaps the aggregate impact of these various subcultures on the internet is driving this in the second term. Yeah,
it'll be very interesting to see when the full facts emerge from this. President Trump apparently unharmed at a small business event in another part of the White House. It is one of the most secure buildings in the world, but reported by many American journalists, including many who are there, briefly in lockdown today. And the reporters, once again, as they were at the Hilton for the Correspondents' Dinner, part of the story, Matt.
To a certain extent, yes. It's once again, you're trying to decipher, is this just some crazy, or is there rhyme to reason as to why these events are happening in the environment and in the context in which they are? And certainly the fact that there is so much adversarial media coverage around Donald Trump is definitely one factor in trying to assess, what the motives are and why these events are happening as they are. And that will inform the meta conversation with so many of these media reporters that are so critical of Donald Trump, but then want to really kind of disclaim any responsibility when some followers or people who watch these media figures criticize Donald Trump take suggestions a little bit too far. So this is going to be the ongoing, battle between Trump and the media class over who is to blame for the temperature in the political discourse and just how chaotic things are these days.
Matt, thank you, and thanks for reacting quickly as well. That's Matt Blinsky there, who is an attorney and a podcast host, keeps a really close eye on American politics. And we know that the White House, that lockdown now seems to be lifted from what reporters are saying, but it was temporarily put into a short lockdown, as the Secret Service confirming it has shot a man next to the Washington Monument. It says officers were on the scene of an officer-involved shooting in Washington, a couple of blocks from the White House, in which one person was shot by law enforcement. That was at Independence Avenue and 17th Street, just a few blocks from Pennsylvania Avenue and 16th Street, which is the White House. It's on a grid system, and there are numbered avenues and avenues named after, numbered streets and avenues named after different states as well. A spokesman said the US Secret Service personnel are on the scene of an officer-involved shooting at 15th Street, apologies, and Independence Avenue at Washington, D.C. One individual was shot by law enforcement. Their condition currently unknown. We will bring you any updates on that between now and 10 o'clock. Petri Hoskin here between 10 and 1. No doubt if there's any more information on that, we will bring it to you as soon as we have it. I want to take a couple more calls before I have a brief chat actually with Petri about what's coming up on her programme. One is about gravestones. Leslie's been in touch and says, what a lovely caring lad cleaning gravestones. Do these council staff start their day thinking, how can we annoy people, says Leslie. Mike's in Lancashire and he has some thoughts on this. Mike, thanks for the call. Thanks for giving me a ring at 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say?
I'd just like to say that this is not the only council that's carrying out these safety issues. Our own council, local council, have done exactly the same in the cemetery near me. And it's all to do with the national campaign after a couple of children actually got crushed with gravestones when they were climbing on them.
Right.
And
well, listen. I mean, that's a dreadful thing, Mike. Obviously, and health and safety is something we need to think about. But it you know, from Dan's perspective, the guy who was Ben McGregor, the volunteer grave cleaner, he's saying he has an assessment himself, and you know he may need a certificate to do that. But what do you think about that?
We all receive letters about the graves in the cemetery, which affected my parents, and we were told that they'd been checked, and if they weren't of a standard, or they were starting to lean, or the pins were coming loose, they would actually lie the headstones down.
Right,
so
I've seen that happen as well.
Past,
I've seen that happen.
So prior to 2009, the base stones were not underpinned into the ground, and they can rock or become loose with movement in the ground, making the whole headstone unsafe.
Yes.
Now, the headstone had to be pinned to the base stone, and if those pins were loose because they corroded, then the headstone will be laid down on
and that is a very important issue, and I don't minimise that issue at all, Mike. But if you have someone who is carrying out that kind of assessment himself, saying he's rejected a request on one occasion, Ben told us earlier on.
You're calling that council, and it's a national thing.
Yeah. So they're just doing what they're told here.
It's not just that council being awkward.
What do you think should happen now, Mike?
Well, in our case, everybody was contacted, and we had to get the gravestones made safe, or they will be laid down on the floor.
Yeah. What would you trust Ben McGregor to clean the graves of your loved ones?
Oh, I'd trust him, because the gravestone are now safe. But like I say, that it's not just that council.
Yeah, well, very interesting point there, Mike.
Council, I can't speak for private church.
Sure, but it is a universal thing, as you correctly say.
It's apparently a national thing.
Very interesting, Mike, and thank you for your perspective and the additional information on that as well. Adam's in Bristol. Adam, you've been very patient, and I really appreciate you waiting through the breaking news. What would you like to say this evening? Adam in Bristol.
Yes,
hi.
No problem. Hi. All I wanted to say was that I reported one of a health professional from my hospital because he was sharing lots of anti-Israel and anti-Jews material on his Facebook.
Were you a patient at this hospital then?
I wasn't. I basically know him because I'm one of the health professionals in the same hospital.
Okay. So you reported him, and what happened then?
Yeah, so I reported him through HR and through proper channel, obviously keeping myself confidential.
Sure. And I'm going to guess that your name isn't Adam. You've decided to give us a different name, and that's absolutely fine. That's okay. So tell us what happened with this incident.
Yeah. So basically, I was just afraid that if one of his patients will see this material, how would they feel going under treatment with him?
Yes.
And he was it's like every day, 3 or 4 posts, everything. And some of these news are like fake. You would know it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just continue. But I was friend with him, as I know him.
Yes. Did you talk to him about this anti-Semitic material? Did you bring it up, or did you just complain, or what was your thought on that?
No, I was not confident about talking to him about it.
Yes.
Because he's senior to me.
Can I just ask you how important? Sorry, we're just slightly running out of time, and I just want to get your views on this. How important is it? I mean, you go to a medical professional, you go to hospital when you're generally vulnerable, you're generally unwell, and need help. I mean, how important is it that the advice you get and the people you're seeing there are completely impartial and their political views have nothing to do with the medical treatment they give you?
The problem is the biggest problem was it was an open profile, so anybody could see it. His patients, is somebody who is not friend with him even. So if I'm a patient and I go to a doctor and suppose I'm gonna have a surgery under him and I search his profile and I find all this material, I would be very uncomfortable going and seeing him. And so I just felt very, I unfriended him and I reported him to HR, and obviously his material is only shared now. It's not shared openly. It is only shared through his friends.
So it did change things then?
Anymore.
It did change things?
Yeah, so HR acted on it. But I'm just saying, I just feel I'm going to use the word, some of the people are just brainwashed. And
yes.
They don't understand what they're sharing. And they're just very, just sharing whatever they want, whether it's true or fake, doesn't matter. And these are highly qualified professionals.
Yeah.
So you can imagine if they're brainwashed in this way, how do you imagine somebody sort of less educated or illiterate, how easy it would be, poor, how easy it would be to brainwash them.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I think you make some really, really good points there, and thank you. That was a man calling himself Adam. That's not his name because he wants to remain anonymous, but a very, very interesting case there, and a really good point there. If highly educated people are sharing this absolute nonsense that he was talking about there, hateful nonsense, well, what hope is there for people who are perhaps less discerning? And it is so important. And I think Petri Hoskin would probably agree with me here that the thing that we have and Petri, I know you have a great relationship with your viewers and listeners. We have trust, and if people don't trust us, that's it.
It's gone. You can't, and that's why it's so important that we check everything and know everything, and
absolutely,
and are literally boring hermits in our private lives, just catching up with the news.
I know what you mean. Addicted to it. And no doubt you'll be reflecting what's happening in Washington, I'm sure, throughout your program.
Well, it seems that Washington has blown through. But we are going to be talking about America and the Strait of Hormuz, and really just do people trust that America can make? Because if there's no trust, there's no insurance, there's no ships moving, all of those things. And we've got an absolutely brilliant shipping expert coming on who works with shipping, and she's just saying it's chaos, it's absolute madness at the moment, and the prices are not going to settle in for another year or so. Or even oil prices, you said. Sure. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be looking at the battle of the titans with the AI war that's going on with Musk and Altman, and also